Chapter 117. The moment he put his hands together, the chakra in Rog's body turned into chakra. Unlike Mount Mayaboku's Sage Mode, Shikatsu Forest's Sage Mode doesn't need to absorb chakra in a static state, and it doesn't need to transform into chakra in advance. As long as the ability to sense and absorb chakra is strong enough, Shikatsu Forest's Sage Mode can be activated instantly. With the red lines and eyeshadow appearing in his eyes, Rog can directly see the chakra around him, and his body can't help but absorb chakra. Although the god of the ocean, Nold, didn't know what Rog had done, the moment Rog entered Sage Mode, he thrust his trident at Rog like a bolt of lightning. Njord's attack wasn't slow, but Rog's speed was faster. After entering Sage Mode, Rog's strength, speed, and physique have undergone a qualitative change. Especially the vitality of his body, it has increased to a terrifying level. Handprint healing. In Sage Mode, Rog is the same as Hashirama, he can automatically recover when he is injured. In other words, in Sage Mode, not only can he fight, but he can also take a beating. When the flashing trident was about to reach him, Rog used the body flicker technique and disappeared in an instant. However, he didn't retreat. Instead, he used the body flicker technique's explosive power to jump high. Sage Mode, Odama Rasengan. The Odama Rasengan with a diameter of 1 meter instantly appeared in his right hand, and then he fiercely attacked Njord on his mount. As the strongest of the Warner Protoss, Njord naturally won't be hit so easily. He suddenly raised his right hand holding the trident, and the tip of the trident pierced the Odama Rasengan in Rog's hand. Boom! An energy storm mixed with Senjutsu chakra and storm force erupted with a loud bang. The shock wave generated by the explosion swept out in all directions at a speed faster than the speed of sound, and spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the ground within a few hundred meters. The shock wave of the explosion lifted Rog in the air, and Njord's mount directly knelt on the ground and let out a painful howl. Rog hasn't landed yet, but his attack was once again in front of Njord. Flying Thor Kunai. Dang! Njord waved his trident, and the flying Thor Kunai was blocked and bounced to the ground. Rog did not expect the flying thunder god Kunai to hit Nold in the first place. All he wanted was a set of coordinates that he could teleport to. When the flying thunder god Kunai stabbed into the ground, he disappeared from the sky again. Immortal Method, Lightning Release, Chidori Blade. Relying on the flying Thor, he instantly flashed to Njord's right side, and the Kusanagi sword wrapped in lightning drew a beautiful arc. Njord didn't expect that Rog, who was blown away by the explosion, could actually come to his side in an instant. He didn't expect that Rog's sword would have such a terrifying speed. Now, there were only two paths in front of him. Either he continued to sit on his mount and use his body to resist the sword, or he abandoned his mount and took the initiative to avoid the sword. In the blink of an eye, Nold made his decision. His body slightly leaned to the left, and then he turned around and instantly left his mount. Njord avoided Rog's lightning-like sword, but his mount wasn't so lucky. The Kusanagi sword directly cut through the mount's neck, directly ending the life of the mount. After the lightning killed Njord's mount, Rog didn't have time to withdraw his sword. Njord's attack arrived in front of him. It was a purple lightning ball with a diameter of 2 meters, flying straight toward him with the momentum to overturn mountains and seas. Even if he had the Sage body and entered the Sage Mode, Rog absolutely couldn't resist the damage of this ball of lightning. However, he didn't need to use his body to resist this ball of lightning. When this powerful ball of lightning was only 2 or 3 meters away from him, a huge palm of 3 or 4 meters in size emerged from the ground and directly grabbed the ball of lightning. Immortal Method, Wood Release, Wood Puppet Technique. I often say that in the past, Hashirama used the wood puppet to catch the Kyuubi's Baijidama with his bare hands. Today, I, Rog, used the wood puppet to catch the sea god Njord's ball of lightning, no problem. When the huge palm caught the ball of lightning, wood puppet Arhat, whose height soared to more than 40 meters, climbed out of the ground. Although Wood Arhat's appearance didn't seem too oppressive, at this time, seeing Wood Arhat catch the ball of lightning with his bare hands, the Warner Protoss soldiers couldn't help but have the feeling that Wood Arhat was an abyss demon. Holding a ball of lightning that constantly released strong electric current in his right hand, and a wooden dragon with a long hooked nose wrapped around his body, Wood Arhat appeared directly in front of everyone. Here you go. Under Rog's control, Wood Arhat's right hand was like a meteorite falling from the sky towards Njord. At this time, Njord finally understood why the three Storm Brothers who had awakened the power of the storm lost to Rog in the Battle of Champions. This Earthling can't be allowed to live. Although Njord's height was less than 2 meters, he didn't have any intention of dodging or retreating. Instead, he directly raised his trident and stabbed towards Wood Arhat's right hand. In terms of size, Njord's action was like a mouse roaring at a lion. But as the strongest of Warner Protoss, Njord obviously wouldn't do such a meaningless action. Boom! When Wood Arhat's right fist that was holding the ball of lightning collided with Njord's trident, an even stronger energy storm than before erupted. The shockwave from the explosion even directly swept through the Warner Protoss soldiers 1 kilometer away, causing the originally neat and orderly formation of the Warner Protoss to suddenly become a mess. The trident in Nold's hand collided with the wooden Arhat's right fist, which was several times larger than himself. The trident that was about the size of a toothpick in front of Wood Arhat not only blocked Wood Arhat's right fist, it also didn't bend at all. This kind of unscathed state was no longer something that could be explained by the strength of the trident itself. Before Wood Arhat could retract his right fist, the trident in Njord's hand shone with an ocean-like blue light. Then, an indescribably shocking scene appeared in front of Rog. On this plain far away from the ocean, a 40 to 50 meters tall and several hundred meters long wave appeared out of thin air in front of him. It was like a natural moat formed by the waves, towering in front of him. Ocean god Njord was starting to get serious. Chapter 118. Is this the power of the god of the ocean? To be able to create waves of this magnitude on a plain without water, no wonder he's the god of the ocean. Looking up at the wave that was taller than Arhat, Rog not only didn't have any fear, but became even more excited. An opponent of this level is worth going all out. Under Rog's control, Arhat opened his arms and roared at the huge wave like a beast. In front of Arhat, the god of the ocean, Njord, was like a mouse in front of a lion. And in front of this wave, the wooden Arhat was like a pet dog in front of a wild wolf. Sometimes, the ups and downs of life came so quickly. At this time, the Warner Protoss soldiers in the distance didn't know how to describe the battle between Njord and Rog. Their only thought now was to retreat as soon as possible, as far away as possible, so as not to be affected by the terrifying battle between these two. Dying on the battlefield was the glory of a soldier. But if he died in the process of being a spectator, it would be a blatant irony. Under the command of the other generals, the disrupted formation of the Warner Protoss soldiers began to quickly retreat. At the same time, on the other side of the plain, Thor and the 3 warriors of Sengoku were also shocked. They knew that Njord was very strong, the strongest of the Warner Protoss. But they didn't expect that Njord could use divine power to directly create a vision of heaven and earth that went against the laws of nature. And what surprised them even more was that Rog, who had been missing for half a year, could actually fight Njord back and forth. Moreover, judging from the few exchanges just now, he had a slight upper hand. He has a power similar to divine power, but I've never seen this type of power. As the only one present who had awakened divine power, Thor was the only one who could detect the natural energy in Rog's body. Divine power? Earthlings can also awaken divine power? Sif wasn't suspecting Thor, but it sounded a little unbelievable. It's not the kind of divine power that we understand. It's just somewhat similar to divine power. It can borrow natural energy. Rog immediately noticed Thor's arrival, even though he didn't pay attention to Thor's situation. After entering Sage mode, his perception ability had been significantly improved, especially in the area of natural energy perception, which had an unparalleled improvement. Thor, who had awakened the power of thunder, was like a walking human-shaped lightning bolt. Moreover, it was the kind that kept releasing electricity. Therefore, as soon as Thor appeared, he would be able to sense Thor's arrival. But now, he didn't pay attention to Thor because he still had a troublesome wave to deal with. Under Njord's control, the tens of meters high wave rushed towards Arhat like a ferocious beast. It had the momentum of completely destroying Arhat. At the moment when the wave hit, Rog also used a ninjutsu that he had never used in actual combat. Sage mode, would release, world of trees descending. At the moment when the wave was about to hit Arhat, the whole earth began to tremble violently, and huge trees directly rushed out from the ground. In an instant, a forest with a radius of several kilometers appeared on the plain, completely changing the terrain of the plain. You have waves, I have forests. Don't underestimate Sage mode. The huge wave carried an aura that could destroy everything as it slammed into the wooden Arhat, slamming into the forest that had sprouted from the ground. At the moment when the wave hit the forest, the earth seemed to howl, and the dull and heavy sound of the wave resounded throughout the world. The waves flowed through the forest like a flood, destroying a large number of trees. An obvious gap appeared in the originally dense forest. When the seawater dissipated, the forest was still standing on the ground, and Arhat was still standing. Now, it's my turn. Rog didn't give Njord a chance to launch another attack. Arhat's fists were like Gatling guns as they bombarded Njord. The Gatling Bodhisattva of Namo had saved the world with great compassion. 3,600 revolutions in a single breath. Physics is converted to Buddha. Eula 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 Eula. The last time this happened was when the destroyer was made of URU metal. Njord was not the destroyer, but the wooden Arhat was not the wooden Arhat of the past. Right now, the wooden Arhat was burning the immortal technique chakra. Just as Arhat's physical fist was about to hit Njord, a spherical barrier made of light blue light appeared in front of him, completely blocking Arhat's fists that could destroy rock and steel. Although the spherical barrier was only a few centimeters thick, it was like an absolute domain, blocking all of the wooden Arhat's attacks. The dull sound of the attack was like the sound of war drums, reaching everyone's ears. While the light blue barrier blocked Arhat's attack, Njord once again raised the trident in his hand. The cloudless sky was suddenly shrouded in dark thunderclouds. Along with the appearance of the thunderclouds, there was also a downpour of rain, a whistling hurricane, and a rapidly rising sea level. Waves, lightning, torrential rain, hurricanes. This was the full power of Njord's ocean godly power. The warriors of the Warner God clan, who had already retreated several kilometers, after seeing this apocalyptic phenomenon, did not need anyone to order them to quickly retreat again. Should we go up and help? Sif came to Thor's side and asked. No need. Without awakened godly power, we can't get involved in their battle. Thor was currently the only person qualified to get involved in the battle, but he had no intention of getting involved. Although he didn't know what Rog was thinking, he was certain that Rog was enjoying the battle. Relying on his ocean godly power, Njord directly changed the weather within a dozen kilometers, creating his own domain. You use the forest to change the terrain of the plains, then I'll turn the entire plains into an ocean. Wrath of the god of the sea, the sky, and earth change color. Under the protection of the spherical barrier, Njord began to slowly rise into the air, and finally floated in the thunderclouds like a light blue sun. Bolt after bolt of lightning struck the forest, and the rapidly rising seawater flooded the entire plains. Dozens of hurricanes formed a storm cage, firmly trapping Rog in the forest. Looking at Njord in the thunderclouds, Rog somewhat helplessly sighed. Afraid that I won't be able to aim, so he purposely gave me a clear target? Surrounded by a forest of towering trees, under his feet was the 10-meter-tall wooden Arhat. Rog stood on the wooden Arhat's head, and had no intention of leaving. Since Njord purposely gave him such a clear target, it would be unreasonable not to hit him. Immortal Spell, Lightning Escape, Spiral Electromagnetic Gun. Chapter 119. With a thought, the light blue spiral electromagnetic gun with lightning wrapped around it appeared in Rog's right hand. Looking at the spiral electromagnetic gun in Rog's hand, the god of the ocean Njord snorted in disdain. You want to use this to defeat me? Aren't you looking down on me too much? Njord knew exactly what the spiral electromagnetic gun in Rog's hand was, and he also knew that Rog used this move to defeat Vigtigny and her sister. But he still didn't think that the spiral electromagnetic gun could hurt him. He was the god of the ocean, the strongest of the Warner Protoss. The spiral electromagnetic gun could defeat Vigtigny and her sister, but it could never defeat him. This was the confidence of the god of the ocean. Glancing at Njord, who was high above, Rog slowly raised his right hand and aimed the spiral electromagnetic gun at Njord. From the outside, the spiral electromagnetic gun in his hand was no different from the last one. But in fact, the spiral electromagnetic gun this time was more than 10 times stronger than the last one. What was circulating inside the spiral electromagnetic gun was not chakra, but the immortal technique chakra. After aiming the spiral electromagnetic gun at Njord, Rog fired the spiral electromagnetic gun without any hesitation. The best way to deal with those arrogant guys was to give them a hard slap on the spot. In just a moment, the spiral electromagnetic gun wrapped in lightning arrived in front of Njord. Then, it slammed into the absolute barrier built by the god of the ocean. Boom! A strong explosion like the explosion of a neutron star rang out, and a strong and dazzling blue light instantly shrouded the entire sky. Pitch-black thunderclouds, violent lightning, raging tornadoes. The original apocalyptic scene was swept away by the terrifying shockwave generated by the explosion, and instantly returned to its original sunny appearance. One punch of wind and rain, no gods in the four seas. For some reason, this sentence suddenly flashed in Rog's mind. Before he could think about it, the shockwave generated by the explosion roared like a tsunami and slammed into Arhat the wood and the forest. The trees in the forest were uprooted, and even the amazingly large wood Arhat couldn't help but take a few steps back before he finally stabilized his body. The shockwave disappeared as quickly as it came. When everything returned to normal, the originally lush forest was already a mess. Rog, who was standing on top of Arhat the wood, ignored the situation in the forest and looked directly at Njord in the air. The absolute barrier formed by the god of the ocean still appeared in front of Njord. However, compared to the previous complete sphere, the current divine barrier was like a wall that had been blasted by a Gatling gun. There were holes everywhere, and it gave off a feeling that it would collapse and dissipate at any time. Behind the fragmented barrier was Njord, who was gasping for breath. Now, he was no longer as conceited as before, and the armor on his chest had completely caved in. The size of the dent was just a little smaller than the spiral electromagnetic gun. Never in his wildest dreams did Njord expect the helical railgun to be so powerful. At the moment when he was hit by the spiral electromagnetic gun, he felt as if he had been hit by Odin, who was holding Thor's hammer. If it wasn't for the god of the ocean dissipating part of the spiral electromagnetic gun's power, the attack just now would have left him with an unforgettable memory. At this time, the first thing that appeared in Njord's mind was not how Rog could make such a powerful attack, but which bastard had investigated. The attack's power was limited. Although it defeated Vigtigny and Weigelf, it did not cause serious damage, and did not have the power to directly kill. Njord really wanted to kill the intelligence officer who came up with this conclusion. Even the god of the ocean's divine power that he had created could not stop the spiral electromagnetic gun. This attack's power could not only seriously injure Vigtigny and Weigelf, but it could also instantly kill them. The last time he suffered an attack of this level was more than 1,000 years ago when he fought with Odin. It was also because of that defeat that Warner Protoss signed a peace agreement with Aseri. Thinking of this, Njord seriously looked at Rog, who was on top of Arhat. This guy, could he be Odin's illegitimate son? The power of thunder was Odin's specialty. And the spiral electromagnetic gun just happened to contain the powerful power of thunder. Just as he was randomly guessing the relationship between Rog and Odin, he saw the familiar spiral electromagnetic gun in Rog's hand. Again? After seeing the spiral electromagnetic gun in Rog's hand again, Njord instantly became 120% alert. The god of the ocean's divine power once again appeared in front of him, and at the same time, he clenched the trident in his hand. Although the power of the spiral electromagnetic gun was far beyond his expectations, it was still enough to make him raise his hand and surrender. There was only one person who could make him put down his weapon and choose to surrender, and that was the father of gods, Odin. Rog raised his right hand again and aimed the spiral electromagnetic gun at Njord. After mastering Sage mode, his Sage body had also undergone an obvious evolution. Now, he could release the spiral electromagnetic gun 6 times in a row, and there would be no side effects. There was no enemy that could not be taken care of by the immortal spell, lightning evasion, spiral electromagnetic gun. If there was, then he would shoot again. Just as Rog was about to release the spiral electromagnetic gun, a cylindrical rainbow fell from the sky. It was the teleportation of the Bifrost. When the brilliant light of the Bifrost dissipated, Odin, who was riding an 8-legged horse, wearing armor and holding the Gungnir, appeared in front of Rog and Njord. The father of gods, Odin, had made his appearance. After seeing Odin appear, Rog took the initiative to deactivate the spiral electromagnetic gun in his hand, and at the same time, deactivated Sage Mode. Njord, are you going to violate the agreement between us? Odin's tone was very calm, and it felt like he was asking Njord if he had eaten breakfast. However, it was this sentence that made Njord, who was floating in the air, take the initiative to land in front of Odin and deactivate the divine power barrier in front of him. I have no intention of violating the peace agreement between us, but my descendant, before Njord could finish his words, he saw Odin's extremely cold eyes, and then he silently swallowed the rest of his words. Looking at Odin, who was silent on the 8-legged horse, Njord did not say anything in the end and silently left. A few minutes later, the army of Warner Protoss began to retreat. Did the difference in treatment have to be so obvious? Something that he could not do even if he fought for his life, Odin did it with just one sentence. This was too much of a blow. Chapter 120. What was a big shot? As long as he appeared, no matter how complicated things were, they would become incomparably simple. When Odin personally came to Warnerheim, the chaotic Warnerheim immediately returned to its original order. Warner Protoss returned to its original territory without a word, and the peace agreement signed thousands of years ago came into effect again. Except for the soldiers who died in battle and the people who were displaced due to the war, everything returned to its original state. In less than 2 days, Asgard took care of all the things in Warnerheim, and the troops began to return to Asgard. Before returning to Asgard, Rog went to see Vigtigny again and returned Vigtigny's wrath of hurricane to her. Then, he left Warnerheim like a scumbag who didn't recognize anyone after pulling up his pants. After returning to Asgard through the Bifrost, Rog suddenly found that Asgard was obviously different from when he left. In other words, he finally felt the magic of Asgard. Natural energy, the natural energy was so rich that it was unreasonable. Even if he didn't enter Sage Mode, he could clearly feel the excessive natural energy. Living in this environment, even an ordinary Earthling could be strengthened to the point of superhuman. In the next few days, the whole of Asgard celebrated the victory of the troops who went out to battle. As for the soldiers who had contributed to the war effort, they had also received their due rewards. Except for Rog. Is this military merit list serious? Hogan and the others got a reward, but I didn't. Rog looked at the military merit list that had just been released in his hand and asked in confusion. To be precise, you're not the only one who didn't get a reward. Thor's name won't appear on it either. Sif casually explained. He is him, and I am me. He's the heir to the throne, and the whole of Asgard will be his in the future. But I'm not. Although he didn't fight for the military merit, Odin's way of doing things was still very disappointing. The reward wasn't important, but it was meaningless if he didn't even show some appreciation. By the way, His Majesty wants you to go see him after the banquet. Tonight? If Rog remembered correctly, Asgard's banquets usually lasted until the wee hours of the morning. Yes, tonight. After receiving Sif's confirmation, Rog suddenly had a bad feeling. Odin was so old, it shouldn't be. After the banquet ended, Rog was led by the royal guards to the highest observation platform of the Golden Palace. Apart from Odin, there was no one else on the huge platform. At this moment, Odin was clad in golden armor, and the tip of the Gungnir emitted strands of electricity from time to time. You're here. Odin was the first to speak. Yes, I'm here. Rog replied simply. Are you very curious why your name isn't on the list of military merit? Odin turned to look at Rog and said calmly. I'm not particularly curious. Since you've removed my name from the list of military merit, you must have your own considerations. As the king of Asgard, Odin obviously couldn't write the list of military merit himself. What he needed to do was to review the list of military merit submitted to him and determine the final reward. Rog was very sure that his name was definitely on the list of military merit, because he had taken a look at the list before submitting it. "You're a smart young man, so I hope that our conversation will only be between the two of us." Apart from Rog and Odin, no one knew what they were talking about. The next morning, the royal guards handed over the thunderclap round fan and the 9 flying Thor kunai that Odin had personally enchanted to Rog, responding to summons and flying autonomously. This was a magical effect that Rog had specially requested, and Odin had fulfilled his small wish. With these 2 magical effects, the round fan and the flying Thor kunai could fly directly into his hands when he needed them, just like the Thor's hammer. After testing the effects of the round fan and the flying Thor kunai, Rog placed them back into the mediumship scroll with great satisfaction. Order had been restored in Warnerheim, and the Bifrost had been rebuilt. It was time to return to Earth. It had been more than 9 months since he left Earth. Although he spent most of his time in Warnerheim, he was quite satisfied with this trip. He increased the amount of chakra, mastered Sage Mode, and learned new ninjutsu. He also got hundreds of kilograms of URU metal. The round fan and the flying Thor kunai were also enchanted. In conclusion, the past 9 months had been quite meaningful. "Okay, don't send me off. If there's a chance, I'll see you on Earth." After saying goodbye to Thor and the 3 warriors of Sengoku, Rog's figure directly disappeared in the brilliant light of the Bifrost. Because there was no specific request for the teleportation location, Heimdall directly set the teleportation location in the original city of Anticapuant. "I'm finally back." Glancing at the blue sky, Rog sighed silently, and then began to perceive the flying Thor technique in New York. The next second, his figure completely disappeared. Rog did not directly return to the office, but directly teleported to his secret nest. But when he returned to this long-lost home, his face became a little ugly. After more than 9 months of vacancy, the originally clean house was covered with dust, and the turbid air irritated his nose all the time. Shadow clone technique. With a thought, a total of 30 shadow clones appeared in front of him. It was absolutely impossible to clean by himself, and it was not appropriate to contact a housekeeping company, so he immediately thought of the shadow clone technique. A shadow clone technique that only knows how to fight is definitely not a good shadow clone technique. After handing over the cleaning job to the shadow clone technique, Rog once again used the flying thunder god and teleported directly to the office. However, when he teleported back to his office, he saw a woman with dark brown curly hair who looked to be in her early 20s. "Who are you?" Rog and the young woman asked at the same time. "You first." After hearing Rog's question, the young woman did not answer his question, but trotted out of the office. Within a few seconds, the woman returned to the office, and Rog's assistant, Erica, came back with her. "Rog, you're back?" After seeing Rog, a look of excitement appeared on Erica's face. But she quickly calmed down, and then said to Rog, "Her name is Sky, a hacker in the hacker organization Rising Tide." Chapter 121. Hacker Sky of the Rising Tide organization? Is she the future Shockwave woman, Daisy Johnson? After hearing Erica's introduction, Rog looked up and down at Sky while using chakra perception to sense her situation. There is no special energy except for the normal life energy reaction. Is it because she hasn't awakened as an inhuman yet? Although it was the first time Sky met Rog, she knew very well that the man in front of her was the real owner of the firm. The legendary private detective. After sensing Rog's look up and down, Sky involuntarily took a step back silently. "Okay, I know, you can go out first," Rog said to Sky. When Sky left the office, Rog asked about what had happened in the past 9 months. In the next half an hour, Erica briefly introduced what had happened in the past and expressed the idea of letting Sky stay in the firm. In the past 9 months, nothing particularly sensational happened. The only thing worth paying attention to was that during the Stark Industrial Expo, Whip fought against Iron Man and was then defeated by Iron Man. In addition, Tawny participated in a hearing organized by the Senate Armed Services Committee and refused to hand over any technology for the Iron Man armor. Although Tawny still maintains his unruly playboy style, he has also become a well-known superhero and has even gained a lot of fans. Through Erica's introduction, Rog finally knew that Sky, the future Shockwave woman, would appear in his firm. After Tawny publicly admitted that he was Iron Man, many people suspected that the government had concealed many important things. In this magical land, the right of citizens to know is a sacred right. At least that's what the people think. As a result, many hacker organizations began to investigate government agencies, trying to dig out substantial evidence that the government concealed from the people. And the Rising Tide organization is one of them. However, unlike other hacker organizations, the Rising Tide organization focused on the investigation of metahumans. After a careful investigation, the Rising Tide organization discovered the existence of S.H.I.E.L.D., and by the way, they also discovered Roger's small, inconspicuous firm. Although they have not investigated what kind of organization S.H.I.E.L.D. is, the existence of this secret organization is enough to prove something. As the top hacker of the Rising Tide organization, Skye was naturally the main force in the investigation. However, Skye had overestimated her ability to act. Her investigation had attracted the Punisher's attention. On a dark and windy night, Skye was gently invited to the office by the Punisher. In the past few years, there had been at least 80, if not 100, people like Skye, who worked in a covert investigation firm. This kind of thing could be easily solved, but after talking to Skye face to face, Erica kept Skye in the office. According to Erica, the firm needed a technical talent like Skye. And after knowing that Skye's ultimate goal was to find her parents, Erica's motherly love inexplicably overflowed. She didn't know if she was moved by Erica's concern or if she wanted to continue investigating something, but Skye happily accepted Erica's arrangement and became a new assistant in the law firm. When Skye stayed, Erica and the other two also quietly monitored her for a while. Except for the occasional hacking, Skye did not pose any threat to the firm, so the Punisher and the Abomination later agreed to Erica's approach. During Rog's absence from the Earth, the affairs of the firm were basically decided by the three of them voting and discussing, so Skye's stay can be regarded as a joint decision of the three of them. Okay, I see, by the way, sort out the previous commissions and give them to me. It didn't take long for Erica to hand over a sorted commission document to Rog. Although he left the Earth, the work of the firm did not stop completely because of his departure. Erica is responsible for receiving commissions, and the Punisher and the Abomination are responsible for completing them. Of course, sometimes Erica herself will complete some commissions, but most of the commissions are completed by the Punisher and the Abomination. Also, unlike him who accepted random commissions, Erica and the others were obviously more focused when they accepted commissions. They were not as confusing as he was. After reading the commission document in his hand, Rog suddenly found that it doesn't seem to make much difference whether he's in the firm or not. Even if he's not there, the firm can still run well, and judging from the completion of these commissions recently, it's running quite well. In the next month or so, Rog resumed his commission career and successfully earned 40 ninja coins with the remaining 3 commission scrolls. Just when he thought that this kind of dull life would continue for several months, Coulson, who he hadn't seen for more than 10 months, suddenly came to the firm. Rog, we're in a bit of trouble now. After that, Coulson directly handed the strange-looking tablet in his hand to Rog. You need to look at this, look at it now. Coulson said to Rog with a serious face, with a serious look on his face that he had never seen before. Don't be so nervous, relax. Rog said to Coulson with a smile and turned on the tablet casually. Then, his face became extremely serious. There was only one surveillance video on the computer, and it was last night's surveillance video. In the video, there was an empty laboratory the size of a basketball court. In the middle of the laboratory, there was a complex instrument. A few seconds later, a blue light shot out from the center of the instrument. This blue light hit a mechanical platform more than 20 meters away, and then a spherical portal appeared on the platform. This spherical portal only lasted for a few seconds before it exploded, and the light blue energy blew around like a hurricane. When the energy storm dissipated, a man with a spear in his hand appeared on the platform. At first sight of this man, Rog recognized his identity. The god of trickery, Loki. When he first opened the surveillance video, Rog felt that the surveillance picture was a bit familiar. When Loki appeared, he was 100% sure that the laboratory in the surveillance was the laboratory where S.H.I.E.L.D. studied Space Gem. Loki, Space Gem, S.H.I.E.L.D., the wheel of fate turned forward again. Tell me, what do you want to commission? We hope you can find this person and give him to us, and you can pay him. Chapter 122. 500 million US. At this time, there is no need to be polite to S.H.I.E.L.D., they have money anyway. And compared with the space stone, 500 million US is nothing. No problem. Coulson has obviously been fully authorized by Nick Fury and agreed without thinking about it. As usual, write the commission content. Remember to send the reward in advance. After that, Rog handed an unused commission scroll to Coulson. Judging from the system's previous performance, the possibility of this commission passing the judgment is extremely high, and if nothing unexpected happens, the commission reward given will also be amazing. Although he was mentally prepared, Rog couldn't help but take a deep breath after seeing the commission information that appeared on the system commission page. Commission content: capture Loki and hand him over to S.H.I.E.L.D. Commission status: incomplete. Commission reward: 200 ninja coins. A full 200 ninja coins. The reward given by the system has once again refreshed the record, and it is double the previous record. The last time he captured Hulk, the system only gave a reward of 100 ninja coins. After seeing the commission reward this time, Rog felt that he suddenly liked Loki. Loki, you are really too good. What is prestige, what is status, this is it. You can take this kunai with you. When you are ready, just let me know. After taking the flying Thor kunai from Rog, Coulson quickly left the office and began to go to Stark Building. At the same time, Black Widow Natasha also found Dr. Banner in Canada, who had become single again. At noon the next day, Rog received a call from Coulson. Before leaving New York, Rog also specifically told Erica and the other two to be ready to fight at any time. It's already in the Atlantic Ocean, how efficient. After sensing the Flying Thor technique of kunai, Rog did not hesitate and directly left the office with the Flying Thunder God. When his figure reappeared, he was on the deck of a busy aircraft carrier. Coulson had just disembarked from a Quinjet with a Thor. Beside him, there was a blonde man with perfect proportions and an American-style perky butt. Next time, before you appear, can you give me a heads up first? It's easy for you to agitate others by appearing and disappearing like a ghost. Although he had already experienced Rog's sudden appearance like a ghost, Coulson couldn't help but complain. Then, he introduced him to the vigilant Rog. This is Rog, a private detective, a very famous one. He is Captain America, Steve Rogers, the first superhero in American history. Coulson added silently, and when he introduced Rogers, his tone was obviously much more excited. It was normal for fans to be excited when they met their idol. Hello. Rog took the initiative to greet him and extended his right hand to Rog. Hello. This is the legendary Captain America. Rog also reached out his right hand and shook hands with Rogers. It felt good. Why did Fury ask you to come here? As soon as Rog shook hands with Rogers, Black Widow Natasha came over and asked in confusion. He's very willing to pay, and I happen to be interested in this commission. Rog answered casually. Pay? After hearing Rog's answer, Rogers froze for a moment. He received the information specially prepared by Nick Fury yesterday, but there was no record of Rog in the information. It wasn't until now that he understood why Coulson just said that Rog was a private detective. Is it really good to let a private detective participate in this kind of mission? Rogers didn't look down on private detectives, but as a soldier, he instinctively felt that private detectives were just civilians and not suitable for this kind of battle. Natasha didn't expect that Nick Fury would take the initiative to find Rog. However, after considering Rog's strength, she felt that Nick Fury's choice was quite wise. The bridge is looking for you. They have already started facial recognition tracking. Natasha didn't pay any more attention to this issue and turned to Coulson and said, See you later. When Coulson left the deck, Rog and the others met Dr. Banner, who was a little restrained. Before Rog had time to say hello to Banner, Rogers took the initiative to greet him. Hello, Dr. Banner. Rogers shook hands with Dr. Banner and then continued, I heard that you can find the magic cube. Haven't you heard of anything else? I don't care about anything else. Roger's answer made Dr. Banner a little more relaxed. Dr. Banner looked around and then said, "You must think all this is strange, right? To be honest, I have a feeling that I haven't felt in a long time." While Rog was talking to Dr. Banner, Natasha came to Rog's side and whispered, "Did Fury really just ask you to find the magic cube? Why do I feel like he might have used you as some kind of safety device?" "Strictly speaking, I'm not here to find the magic cube, I'm just here to capture Loki. As for the safety device, I don't think Fury needs an outsider like me as the final insurance." Rog knew exactly what Natasha meant by a safety device. Although Dr. Banner is now gentle, once he gets angry, he will be crazier than the craziest beast. "Let's go in quickly, we won't be able to breathe here soon." Natasha didn't continue to dwell on this issue and said directly to Rogers and Dr. Banner, who were not far away. As soon as Natasha finished speaking, the announcement that the deck was cleared sounded on the deck. "Is this a submarine? It can't be. Do you want me to stay in a sealed and pressurized metal tank underwater?" Both Rogers and Dr. Banner guessed something, but their imagination was still a little weak. When they came to the edge of the deck, they saw the turbo-type flight engine that was slowly rising. This is not an aircraft carrier, but a helicarrier. Led by Natasha, Rog and the others came to the bridge of the helicarrier and saw the busy SHIELD staff, as well as Nick Fury, who was wearing a black leather trench coat. "Sir, we have reached the predetermined altitude." "Very well, let's disappear." Nick Fury, who was standing in the commander-in-chief position, gave the order decisively. "Hello, everyone." Nick Fury turned around and greeted Roger and the others. At this time, Rogers of the American team silently took out $10 and handed it to him. Chapter 123. Seeing Rog handing $10 to Nick Fury, and Nick Fury was very happy to accept it, Rog suddenly thought of the $500 million that S.H.I.E.L.D. had sent last night. This is called noble character, this is called selfless dedication. No wonder Rogers can have the title of Captain America, this title is simply tailor-made for him. Not only did he not charge a penny for carrying out such a dangerous task, but he also took the initiative to pay for it. This kind of character, this kind of style, it seems that he can only be a vulgar person in the future. "Thank you for coming." After putting away the $10, Nick Fury deliberately looked at Rog with his remaining right eye, as if to say, "Look at him and then look at him." Rog chose to ignore Nick Fury's suggestive eyes. Then, Nick Fury came to Dr. Banner and said slowly, "Doctor, thank you for coming. Thank you for not being rough." Dr. Banner answered calmly, and then continued, "How long do I have to stay here?" "We will let you go as soon as we get the magic cube, and you can go anywhere you want." "So, how are you doing now?" Dr. Banner continued to ask. If he could, he was not very willing to stay here. In particular, Rog was also here. "We are scanning all the wireless readable cameras, mobile phones, and laptops in the world. As long as they are connected to satellites, they are our eyes." Coulson answered the question for Nick Fury. "How many spectrometers can you mobilize if you want to narrow down the scope?" "As many as you want," Nick Fury said with great confidence. "Contact all the laboratories you can find and ask them to put the spectrometers on the roof and search for gamma rays. I will draft a tracking algorithm based on cluster recognition, so that at least a few areas can be ruled out." After entering his professional field, Dr. Banner immediately showed the qualities that his 7 doctorate degrees should have. "What is professional? This is it. Can you find me a place to work?" Dr. Banner continued. "Agent Romanoff, please take Dr. Banner to his laboratory." As a professional agent, Nick Fury naturally made all the necessary preparations and instructed Natasha. After Banner and Natasha left, Nick Fury came to Rog and said, "Are you really not considering joining the Avengers project? We need a professional like you. What you need is not a professional, but a professional fighter. It's better for us to maintain our current relationship. You'll pay, and I'll do my best. Money and goods are even, and I won't cheat anyone." Rog rejected Nick Fury's invitation once again. This was not the first time that Nick Fury had extended an invitation, but every time, he had received the same answer. If I remember correctly, your last evaluation of me was that I was reckless, often ignored the rules, and lacked sympathy for the weak. It's not a good habit to overturn your previous evaluation for a mere $500 million US. With the help of Dr. Banner, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s search work has improved significantly, but even so, they only found Loki's trace after nightfall. Suspected target found, facial features match 67%, weight, cross-comparison shows 79% match. A S.H.I.E.L.D. staff member reported. Where is he? Stuttgart, Germany, 28 Kuhnenstrasse. He didn't plan to hide. Loki, wearing a handsome suit, appeared on the surveillance screen. Captain, it's up to you. Nick Fury glanced at Rogers next to him and said with a serious face. At the same time, Rog in Natasha's room also received the order to set off. This Loki appeared at a really bad time. More than 10 minutes later, Rog and others appeared in a Quinjet that had already been prepared and began to head to Loki's location. Not long after the Quinjet set off, Rog, in uniform, came to Rog and sat next to him. Glancing at Natasha, who was piloting the Quinjet, Rog turned to Rog and whispered, "I don't mean to offend you, but now is the time of action, and it's better to control some things. Wasting stamina is a big taboo on the battlefield. I can fight like this all day." Rog wanted to answer Rogers with this classic quote, but after seeing Rogers' serious expression, he dismissed the idea. The other party had good intentions. Although this did not affect him in any way, it was still a kind reminder from the other party. Proper relaxation is good for reducing the pressure before the battle. Just kidding, thank you for reminding me, I will pay attention next time. Then, it was a boring, long, and boring flight. At this time, Loki, wearing a horned helmet and holding a scepter, was expressing his feelings to the ordinary people kneeling in the square. You are born to be ruled by others, and you will always bow down to others. As soon as Loki finished speaking, an old man with very little hair stood up. We will not bow down to people like you. You'll never find someone like me again. Loki said in a superior tone. Facing Loki, who showed superhuman strength, the old man was not afraid at all, and said firmly, "There are always lunatics like you. Everyone, look at this old man, I will use him as an example to others." After that, Loki pointed the scepter in his hand at the old man who stood up, and the tip of the scepter shone with a light blue light. Whoosh! The next second, a ball of energy flew toward the old man like a cannonball. Just as the energy ball was about to hit the old man, Rogers descended from the sky, blocked the energy ball with the shield in his hand, and bounced the energy ball back. Bang! Loki, who was caught off guard, was knocked to the ground by the energy ball he fired. You know, the last time I came to Germany, I also met a person who stepped on others. After blocking the energy cannonball, Rogers of the American team walked towards Loki, who was lying on the ground. Where did these people learn the habit of chatting before fighting? Isn't it better to just fight? Loki, who was knocked down, stood up immediately. Just as he was about to say a few harsh words to Rogers, he saw a person who was falling rapidly, a somewhat familiar person. Is it Rog? Why is he here? Isn't he at Asgard? Has the Bifrost been repaired? In an instant, several questions appeared in Loki's mind at the same time. Before he could think of any results, he saw a flying Thor kunai shining with a light silver metallic light in front of him. Chapter 124. Although Loki is not a professional melee player, it doesn't mean that he is not good at dodging. Not to mention the flying Thor kunai thrown by Rog, even if it's an arrow shot by Hawkeye, he can easily catch it. But now, he obviously doesn't have the idea of catching the kunai with his bare hands. Rog is very dangerous, and the weapon he throws is also very dangerous. With this in mind, Loki slightly tilted his head and avoided the flying Thor kunai that flew directly toward his handsome face. That's it? After avoiding the attack of the flying Thor kunai, Loki's face showed a look of disdain. However, in the next second, his disdain turned into shock. Rog, who was still falling rapidly in the air, instantly flashed in front of him, and his left hand grabbed the flying Thor kunai that just flew over his head. In Rog's right hand, there is a palm-sized light blue ball. Rasengan. Rog didn't give Loki any time to react, the Rasengan in his right hand directly pressed on Loki's chest. Boom! At the moment of contact with the Rasengan, Loki felt a strong twisting and tearing force. Then, his whole body was sent flying, and he crashed heavily into the house behind him. "Leave him to me, I have a personal friendship with his brother, you are responsible for evacuating the crowd," Rog said to Rogers without looking back, but he soon found that his words just now were a little superfluous. The onlookers kneeling in the square didn't need anyone to remind them. After seeing Loki flying out, they scattered like a nest of frightened mice. "How did you do that just now?" Rogers of the American team came to Rogers' side with his shield and asked in confusion. "You can simply understand that these are my superpowers." Rog didn't intend to explain to Rogers what ninjutsu is. This kind of thing will only be more complicated. Just as Rogers was about to continue to ask something, Loki, who was hit, came out of the broken wall. Although the power of the Rasengan is not bad, it depends on who it hits. For Loki, a frost giant, although the Rasengan hurts a little, it's not enough to knock him down with one blow. At this time, Loki has completely lost his previous arrogance and disdain. The appearance of Rog can be said to have completely disrupted his plan. Rog's appearance means that Bifrost is repaired, and Bifrost's repair means that Thor will come at any time. Should I change the plan? Just as Loki was considering whether or not to change himself, Rog once again appeared in front of him. Body flicker technique. The flying Thor kunai in Rog's hand pierced Loki's heart like lightning, and then it directly passed through Loki's body. Illusion. The reappeared Loki was just an illusion. As a sorcerer, he says. TSSS, TSST. 3 Tomo Sharingan, open. In an instant, Rog's eyes turned blood red, and then he quickly glanced around. Streets, squares, roofs. After a quick observation of the surrounding environment, Rog did not find any trace of Loki. Since he can't see him with his eyes, he'll use another way. Chakra perception. Loki can use magic to change his figure and create illusions to mislead the enemy, but his life strength and energy intensity are not so easy to change. Especially in a place like the Earth, his frost giant's life strength is as obvious as the moon in the night sky. He's running really fast. At this time, Loki had run out of several streets, decisively like an Olympic athlete in a 100-meter sprint. However, Loki didn't expect that at this time, a man in a red Iron Man armor would fly towards him, and without thinking, he gave him 2 energy cannons. Boom! Loki, who was running wildly, was hit by Iron Man Tani's 2 arc pulse cannons and he flew out in an extremely embarrassing manner. Make a move, Bambi. Loki, who was hit, just sat up and Iron Man Tani opened all the weapons on his armor and pointed them at him. Under Tani's naked threat, Loki decisively lifted the magic on his body. The armor on his body and the horned helmet on his head quickly disappeared, and then he silently raised his hands. That's a good boy. Tani put away his weapon, and Rog and Rogers also rushed over at this time. The next thing was much simpler. When Tani and Rog escorted Loki to the Quinjet, Rog picked up the scepter that fell aside. Is this the scepter that hides the Mind Gem? Mind Gem, the embodiment of the universal consciousness, can dominate the mind of all creatures, can read, modify, manipulate, and create the spirit of life. Even with a light touch, it can change the mind of the target. Even Rog, who has seen a lot, couldn't help but get a little excited at this time. However, when he picked up Loki's scepter and seriously perceived the blue gem at the top of the scepter, his face became extremely ugly. There is a ghost mind gem in it. Inside the blue gem at the top of the scepter, there is nothing but a huge amount of energy of unknown origin. Is there really no mind gem? Or is this scepter just a forgery? If the scepter is a forgery, it will be a little better, as long as the genuine one is found. If this scepter is genuine, then the problem is very serious. This means that in the future, he will no longer be the one he knows, and he will lose an extremely powerful invisible golden finger. After a helpless sigh, Rog boarded the Quinjet with the scepter that he didn't know if it was genuine or not. Did he speak? After knowing that Loki was successfully arrested, Nick immediately asked Natasha, who was piloting the Quinjet. He didn't say a word. Bring him back, we don't have much time. Nick Fury decisively ended the call. Rog and Tawny of the American team said, I have a bad feeling. Why, isn't it good for a rock star to surrender? Tawny replied with an indifferent face. Rog, what do you think? Rog ignored Tawny and asked Rog's opinion. At this time, Rog didn't care why Loki surrendered. He just wanted to know if this scepter is genuine. It's okay, nothing special. Rog's answer was equally casual. With his skill, he shouldn't surrender so easily. Looking at the indifferent expressions of his two teammates, Rog's face became a little ugly. Just as Rog was about to say something, a few violent lightning flashed in the night sky. Loki, who didn't say a word, involuntarily turned his head and looked outside. Chapter 125. Loki's action immediately attracted the attention of Rogers from the American team. What's the matter, are you afraid of thunder? I don't like guys who follow lightning. Loki ignored Rogers' sarcasm and answered nervously. Thor really came. Although Loki had been mentally prepared when he saw Rog, he didn't know what to expect. But when Thor really appeared, he couldn't help but feel nervous. In just a few seconds, Saul, who was accompanied by lightning, landed directly on the Quinjet, causing the flying Quinjet to suddenly shake during the battle. A familiar guy is here. Unlike the nervous Loki and the confused Rogers and the others, Rog had a calm expression on his face at this time. When Rogers picked up his shield and Tawny put on his helmet, Rog came directly in front of Loki and patted him on the shoulder. Thor's flying technique. Before the authenticity of the scepter was confirmed, he would never let Loki out of his sensing range. When Rog patted his shoulder, Loki felt a mysterious power that he had never touched before. Although this power was not considered strong, it was firmly branded on his body like gangrene attached to the bone. What is this? Just as Loki was about to speak, Tawny, who had already put on his helmet, opened the hatch at the tail of the Quinjet. However, Tawny had just taken a few steps when Thor in his armor came to the hatch and directly hammered Tawny. Without any suspense, Tawny was sent flying, and at the same time, he knocked down Rogers who was behind him. It was not until then that Thor realized that not only Loki was here, but Rog was also here. Long time no see. Rog took the initiative to greet him. Long time no see. Thor replied subconsciously, and then he remembered the real purpose of his trip. I still have some things to take care of. As soon as he finished speaking, Saul grabbed Loki and pinched his neck like he was pinching a cat's neck. Then, he waved Mjolnir and flew out. Another troublemaker. Tawny, who stood up, complained silently. Is he also from Asgard? Natasha had never seen Thor before, nor had she seen any information about Thor. He is Loki's brother, Thor from Asgard. As the person who was most familiar with Thor, Rog took the initiative to introduce Thor. Then, is he on our side? Rogers of the American team immediately asked Roger. It doesn't matter, whether he releases Loki or kills him, we can't find the Tesseract. Before Rog could answer, Tawny spoke first, and then walked in the direction of the cabin door. Stark, we need a battle plan. Rogers said quickly. I have a plan, and that is to attack. Tawny turned his head and replied to Rogers, and then flew out directly. Watching Tony leave on his own, the captain of the American team, Rogers, was displeased. He picked up a parachute. Captain, don't get involved in this mess. They are all legends, almost equivalent to gods. Natasha, who was piloting the fighter, turned back and said to Captain America. Madam, there is only one god, and he will definitely not dress like that. After putting on the parachute, Rogers picked up his shield and jumped out of the fighter without looking back. Although in name, everyone is a member of the same team. But obviously, every member of this team has their own ideas and is very individualistic. Teamwork? Was that even edible? Aren't you going? In desperation, Natasha could only ask Rog, who was still in the fighter. Don't worry, Loki can't run away. Rog did not chase after Loki because the flying Thor technique on Loki is now in a state of rapid flight. When Loki lands or stops moving, he will naturally teleport over. Are you familiar with Thor? He seemed surprised when he saw you just now. After closing the door of the fighter, Natasha asked Rog again. I should be quite familiar with him, after all, I fought with him on an alien planet for 9 months. Hearing Rog's answer, Natasha's first reaction was that Rog was joking. But when she remembered that Rog had secretly disappeared for 9 months some time ago, she suddenly felt that what Rog said seemed to be true. Which planet? Why did you fight together? How did you get to that planet? After realizing that Rog was telling the truth, Natasha immediately asked. This is exclusive information, and it's first-hand exclusive information. As a professional agent, Natasha immediately realized the value of this information. I'll tell you next time. In Rog's perception, Loki had stopped flying and was staying on an unknown mountain top. Without any hesitation, Rog picked up Loki's scepter and directly left the fighter with the flying thunder god. At this time, Loki was sitting on a rock on the top of the mountain, looking at Thor and Tani fighting in the forest with a satisfied expression. However, in the next second, he saw the person he didn't want to see the most at this time. What's the matter with the scepter? After teleporting in front of Loki, Rog directly threw the scepter in his hand to Loki and asked with a serious expression. What do you mean, what's the matter? Loki casually took the scepter thrown by Rog and stood up with a puzzled expression. I'm not in the mood to joke with you right now. I'll ask again, what's the matter with the scepter? As soon as his voice fell, a ball of lightning visible to the naked eye appeared in Rog's right hand, and at the same time, there was the sound of 1,000 birds chirping. I really don't know what you're talking about. Loki still looked like he didn't understand anything. Asgard has already held a funeral for you, so I don't mind sending a dead person back to where he should be. As soon as his voice fell, Rog flashed in front of Loki and the Chidori in his right hand directly pierced Loki's heart. Wait! Just as the Chidori was about to pierce Loki's chest, Loki spoke again. Do you think this kind of low-level illusion can fool me? I'm the god of trickery, Loki. Playing illusion in front of me, aren't you too confident? As soon as Loki finished speaking, the Rog standing in front of him disappeared like a bubble, and 10 meters away, another Rog appeared. Ignorant earthling. Loki's face was full of disdain as he added. Well, since illusion can't scare you, let's do it for real. As soon as his voice fell, Rog used the summoning technique to summon the Kusanagi sword. As a show of respect, before you die, I'll tell you the name of this move in advance. This move is called Kusanagi sword, Chidori blade. In Warnerheim, I once used this move to kill a 5-meter-tall Kronan warrior. When Rog introduced the Chidori blade, Loki felt a strong murderous intent from him. This guy is serious. Farewell, Loki. Before Loki could speak, Rog once again appeared in front of him, and the Kusanagi sword wrapped in lightning directly pierced his throat. Chapter 126. The scepter was given to me by Thanos. Just as the Kusanagi sword was about to pierce Loki's throat, Loki spoke in an unprecedented speed. However, he was still too slow. The Kusanagi sword in Rog's hand did not slow down and directly pierced Loki's throat. Madman, this guy is a madman. Although his neck was pierced by the Kusanagi sword, Loki did not feel the slightest pain. He was fooled, the god of trickery was fooled by an earthling. Why didn't you say so earlier? Why did you have to do this? At this time, Rog was still holding the sword. After he finished this sentence, his body instantly collapsed and dissipated, turning into a dark crow. From the beginning to the end, he had no intention of killing Loki. Although Loki looked unloved in Asgard, if he really killed him, Odin, the father of all gods, would definitely kill Rog. You can. After calming down a little, Loki stared at Rog, who was more than 10 meters away, especially his blood-red eyes. As a master of illusion, he was actually fooled by an earthling's illusion. This was a shame that needed to be washed away with the enemy's life. After being teleported here through the Thor, Rog immediately cast an illusion on Loki. However, what he cast was not an ordinary illusion, but a double illusion. For someone like Loki who was proficient in magic, especially illusion magic, ordinary illusions would never be able to escape his eyes. Therefore, Rog deliberately gave Loki a small opportunity to show off and let him perceive the existence of the first illusion. As he had expected, Loki easily discovered the existence of the first illusion. However, Loki did not expect that the first illusion was only a part of the second illusion. Loki thought that he had seen through Rog's illusion, but in fact, he had always been under the influence of the second illusion. With Loki's strength, if he was just a little bit more cautious and serious, he would have a great chance of discovering the existence of a second illusion. Unfortunately, he was too confident. He was confident that he had seen through Rog's illusion. Loki thought that he was on the second floor and Rog was only on the first floor, but the real situation was that Loki was on the second floor and Rog was on the fifth floor. Thanos asked you to conquer the Earth, but as a result, he is not even willing to give you a better weapon. It seems that you are not very important in his heart. Although Loki's scepter was a good magic weapon, it could only be considered good. Not to mention the hammer of Thor, even Rog's enchanted fan that had been enchanted by Odin was several levels higher than this thing. At the very least, his round fan could still respond to its owner's summons and had the ability to fly. You know. What do you know? Thanos doesn't want the Earth, but, speaking of this, Loki finally reacted. Why do I have to explain to him? He is not my companion. Not knowing if it was because of shyness or other reasons, Loki snorted proudly and then ignored Rog. At this time, Tawny and Thor were still fighting in the forest below, but they soon ushered in another game partner. Rogers of the American team finally rushed over and attacked Tawny and Thor with the shield in his hand at the same time. The appearance of Rogers made the battle between Tawny and Thor temporarily stop. Then not long after, Thor waved Thor's hammer and smashed it on Rogers' shield. Boom! A dazzling and powerful explosion sounded, and the surrounding trees were instantly broken, and a very obvious circular gap appeared in the forest. After the explosion, Thor, Rogers, and others finally calmed down and put an end to this meaningless battle. More than half an hour later, the group returned to the helicarrier, and Loki was escorted by a team of heavily armed SHIELD soldiers to his VIP presidential suite. As he passed by Dr. Banner's laboratory, Loki turned to look at Dr. Banner and showed an ambiguous smile. Let's be clear, if you try to escape, even if you just scratch the glass, you will fall to a height of 9,000 meters with this cage, understand? Nick Fury demonstrated his VIP exclusive service to Loki. This cage is really good, I guess it wasn't made for me? Even at a time like this, Loki still looked indifferent. It was built for something more powerful than you. Nick Fury answered Loki's question. I've heard of it. After that, Loki turned his head and glanced at the surveillance camera next to him. It's obviously a stupid beast, but you still pretend to be an ordinary person. How panicked are you to think of such a monster as a rescue? Loki's ridicule was clearly transmitted to a conference room in the helicarrier. Nick Fury is not the only one who is paying attention to Loki. Panicked? You threatened me by saying that you would go to war with my world. You stole the power that you couldn't control. You took pleasure in killing. It was you who forced me to do this. Nick Fury didn't take Loki's ridicule to heart and said righteously. If you don't know his identity, you will definitely think that he is a good person after hearing his words. Although Rog is also in the conference room, his attention is not on the conversation between Nick Fury and Loki, but looking at the system's commission page with a puzzled face. Commission content: capture Loki and hand him over to SHIELD. Commission status: incomplete. Commission reward: 200 ninja coins. Loki has been successfully captured and handed over to SHIELD, but the system still hasn't judged that the commission has been completed. The 3 words, incomplete, are still so dazzling. Judging from the content of the commission, it is definitely in the state of being completed. But the problem is that the system doesn't seem to recognize this. What the hell is going on here? Rog read the commission content over and over several times, but he still has no clue. Just as he was thinking about whether there would be any hidden conditions in this commission, Captain Rogers suddenly asked Thor, Loki is stalling for time. Thor, what is he planning? He has an army of Chitauri, and no one knows his origin. He intends to lead this army to invade the Earth. The Chitauri will help Loki conquer the Earth, and in return, Loki will give them the magic cube. Saul told him everything he knew about the current situation. An army, or an army from outer space? Roger's tone became serious. However, when she heard the word outer space, Natasha, who was sitting opposite Rog, silently looked back at Rog. Chapter 127. Why are you looking at me? I don't know anything about Chitauri. Because of Natasha's turn back, Rogers, Dr. Banner, and others also turned to look at her. If Loki has an army from outer space, then he also needs a stable space portal. That's why he kidnapped Dr. Selvig. Since meeting Rog on the helicarrier, Dr. Banner has deliberately avoided dealing with Rog, so he pulled the topic back to the main topic. Selvig? Thor suddenly asked. He's a Ph.D. in astrophysics. Dr. Banner explained. He's my friend. I don't know what method Loki used to control him, and one of our agents. Natasha added in her mind. I want to know why Loki surrendered so easily. He can't command the army if he's locked up here. Rogers always felt that something was wrong with Loki's choice to surrender so easily. On the Quinjet, he asked Rog and Tawny about it, but they obviously didn't care about it. I don't think we should focus on Loki. This guy is a madman. You can see it at a glance. Dr. Banner expressed his opinion. Until now, he felt that Loki's meaningful smile was a bit scary. Pay attention to what you say. No matter how rude and unreasonable Loki is, he is still Asgard. He is my brother. After hearing Dr. Banner's evaluation of Loki, Thor couldn't help but defend Loki. He killed 80 people in 2 days. Natasha added silently again. He was adopted. Thor immediately explained. Rog did not participate in the discussion between them. His mind was now full of why the commission was not completed and why there was no Mind Stone in the scepter given by Thanos. How about throwing Loki out and then catching him back? A crazy idea began to take shape in his mind. Just as he was considering the feasibility of this plan, Tawny and Coulson came to the bridge and said to Dr. Banner at the same time, Iridium can be used as a stabilizer to prevent the portal from collapsing on itself, just like S.H.I.E.L.D.'s previous one. Big guy, don't hold a grudge. Your 2 hammers are very powerful. When he passed by Thor, Tawny patted Thor's muscular shoulder and continued to walk towards the Commander-in-Chief's position on the bridge. Iridium allows Loki to expand the portal as he pleases and maintain it for a very long time. Tawny spoke as he walked, and soon arrived at Nick Fury's commanding position. He then continued, raise the mizzen mast and turn the topsail. When the staff on the bridge turned to look at Tawny, he suddenly pointed at one of them and said, that person is playing with a bee. He thinks that others can't see it, but I can see it. Tawny's jesting instantly swept away the depressing atmosphere in the bridge. How can Fury see the screens on both sides? Tawny tried to block his left eye with his hand and then asked Agent Hill behind him. Turn around. Agent Barton can easily get other raw materials. He only lacks one main component, which is energy. Some kind of high-density energy is used to activate the magic cube. After a few random clicks on the screen, Tawny said casually, and then when he turned around, he installed a small device that looked like a nut on the pillar under the screen. When did you study thermonuclear astrophysics so much? Agent Hill asked. After hearing Agent Hill's words, Rog sighed helplessly. You shouldn't have asked this question. It will make everyone present look like they haven't graduated from elementary school. Last night. The dataset, Dr. Segwell's notes, and some papers on extraction theory. Didn't you do your homework in advance? Thor said in a slightly exaggerated tone. Does Loki need any specific energy? Roger ignored Tawny's exaggerated expression and asked silently. He has to heat the magic cube to more than 100 million degrees to surpass the Coulomb barrier. Dr. Banner answered immediately. Unless Selvig has already figured out a way to stabilize the quantum tunneling effect. Tawny added while walking towards Dr. Banner. If he really figures it out, he can use any reactor to complete heavy ion beam fusion. Dr. Banner continued. Finally, there is someone who can speak. What do you mean by that? Roger complained. Compared with Tawny and Dr. Banner, everyone present is an elementary school student who hasn't graduated yet. It's nice to meet you, Dr. Banner. Your research in the field of anti-electron collision is really unparalleled, and I think it's great that you turned into Hulk when you lost control. Dr. Banner was quite happy with the first half of Tawny's sentence, but the second half, you flatter me. Dr. Banner replied with a little helplessness. Dr. Banner's purpose this time is only to track the magic cube. I hope you can find it with him. Nick Fury returned to the bridge and interrupted Tawny's crazy idea in time. When Tawny and Dr. Banner went to the laboratory, Thor came to Rog and asked Rog, "Why are you here?" "I received a commission from someone else, so I came." Rog replied casually. Loki may have done something wrong, but no matter what, he's still an Asgardian. He's still my brother, so I hope you can help me bring him back. The purpose of Thor's trip is to retrieve the magic cube and bring Loki back to Asgard, but if Rog stops him then he feels that it will be difficult for him to take Loki away. So he needs to confirm Rog's attitude in advance, lest things go in the worst direction. No problem. But only after I complete the commission, and I happen to have something I need your help with. The commission Rog said is, of course, not the commission of S.H.I.E.L.D. If it was the commission of S.H.I.E.L.D., it would have been completed from the moment Loki boarded the helicarrier. What he is talking about now is the commission of the system. He will not let anyone take Loki away until the status of the system's commission becomes completed. That's 200 ninja coins. And he has never had the habit of giving up commissions. What's the matter? As long as Rog doesn't stop him from taking Loki away, everything else is fine. It doesn't matter if it's earlier or later. I want to know the whereabouts of the Spirit Stone. As soon as Rog finished speaking, Thor's face became a little ugly. Thor knows exactly what the Spirit Stone is, but he didn't expect that Rog would want to know the whereabouts of the Spirit Stone. And with his understanding of Rog, if Rog wants to know the whereabouts of something, it often means that he is determined to get that thing. Chapter 128. You want to find the mind gem? This is not a power that can be controlled by humans, it will only bring disaster. Thor felt that it was necessary to stop Rog's dangerous idea. That is one of the 6 Infinity Stones, one of the most dangerous forces in the universe. I just want to know the whereabouts of the mind gem now. I am not arrogant enough to control the mind gem. Rog knew exactly what Thor was worried about, but his worries now were obviously superfluous. I can try my best to help you inquire about it, but don't get your hopes up. Although he didn't know what Rog wanted to do, Thor finally agreed out of trust in Rog. After reaching a consensus with Thor, Rog left the bridge and returned to the room arranged for him by Nick Fury. The only thing he was good at was fighting, and as for those professional things, he would leave it to the professionals. Tawny and Banner were trying to determine the whereabouts of the magic cube. Natasha went to Loki's VIP presidential suite to see if she could get any useful information from him. As for Rog, he was now looking for something in the secret warehouse in the mothership. Thor was as idle as Rog, but one of them chose to go back to his room to sleep, while the other stayed in the bridge. However, not long after he lay down, he felt an abnormal energy fluctuation. To be precise, it was a magic fluctuation. Is this serious? The mind gem is gone. Can this scepter still have the effect of bewitching the mind? After sensing this sudden energy fluctuation, Rog could only end his rest time helplessly and walk towards Dr. Banner's laboratory. When he came to the laboratory, he saw Tawny and others arguing, and Dr. Banner, who had unknowingly picked up the scepter. Looking at the noisy Tawny and others, Rog frowned slightly, and then mobilized chakra in his body. Although he didn't know how the scepter bewitched Tawny and others, he had a very simple and crude way to crack it. Everyone, calm down. When Tawny and others all looked at him, Rog's eyes instantly turned into 3 Tomo Sharingan. Sharingan, Genjutsu. The moment they saw Rog's eyes, Tawny and others were pulled into an illusion by Rog. But he didn't do anything to them, and a few seconds later, he took the initiative to lift the illusion. When the effect of Genjutsu disappeared, Tawny and others also recovered their original reason and realized that something was wrong with them. Try to stay away from that scepter, Rog reminded them. At this moment, the monitoring device in the corner of the laboratory suddenly emitted a burst of urgent alarm. The energy signal match is 100%. Looking at the alert information and location displayed on the screen, Dr. Banner subconsciously took off his glasses. Boom! A strong explosion sounded, and the entire helicarrier shook violently. Although this sudden explosion didn't directly blow up the flight engine of the helicarrier, it also successfully stopped the helicarrier's engine 3. Not only that, because the laboratory is very close to the engine 3, the explosion unsurprisingly affected the laboratory and blasted a big hole in the laboratory floor. Tawny, Rog, and Thor were blown out by the explosion, while Banner, Natasha, and others fell directly to the next floor of the laboratory. This explosion really came at the right time. At the moment when the explosion sounded, Rog covered himself with a layer of chakra, so he didn't suffer any damage at this time. Are you okay? After lifting the metal pipes and iron pieces that pressed on Natasha and Dr. Banner, Rog asked about their condition. I'm fine. Although she looked a little embarrassed, Natasha didn't suffer any obvious damage, she was just pressed down by those metal pipes. Compared to Natasha, Dr. Banner was a lot unluckier. Not only did he suffer more damage, but what's more troublesome is that he can't control his emotions now. You leave here first, I'll take care of Banner. Dr. Banner's skin began to rapidly turn green, his body size skyrocketed, and the clothes on his body were directly stretched into rags by his skyrocketing body. Looking at Dr. Banner, who was transforming, Natasha didn't hesitate and immediately left. Rog didn't stop Banner's transformation, and for him, even if Banner transformed into Hulk, the result wouldn't change at all. Ouch! After a painful howl, Dr. Banner disappeared completely and was replaced by the muscular and strong Hulk. I didn't expect us to meet again in this situation. Rog silently looked at Hulk, who had completely lost his mind in front of him, and sighed helplessly. If he could, he would like to meet the Hulk who could communicate with him. When Rog looked at Hulk, Hulk also noticed the little guy in front of him. Although Hulk has completely lost his mind now, when he saw Rog, he seemed to remember something. Then in the next second, Hulk rushed towards Rog. Odama Rasengan. When Hulk rushed in front of him, Rog didn't hesitate and directly condensed the Odama Rasengan in his right hand. Boom! The Odama Rasengan and Hulk's right fist collided fiercely, and a strong explosion sounded. Hulk smashed Rog's Odama Rasengan, but Hulk himself was also blown out by the Odama Rasengan. It wasn't until he crashed through several layers of walls that Hulk finally stopped. Big guy, calm down, I don't want to hit you with the wooden man anymore. Before Hulk, who was knocked out, stood up, Rog used the body flicker technique to appear in front of him. For Rog's persuasion, Hulk gave his own answer. Hulk leaped up and pounced toward Rog like a ferocious tiger pouncing on its prey. Why don't you listen to my advice? With just a body flicker technique, Rog avoided Hulk's attack. After avoiding Hulk's attack, Rog extended his right hand towards Hulk. Mokutan Great Forest Technique. 5 wooden vines gushed out from Rog's right hand and pounced on Hulk like 5 pythons. Then, they bound Hulk tightly. Although the Great Forest Technique doesn't have the effect of absorbing the physical strength and energy of the target like the Wood Dragon Technique, the Great Forest Technique's binding effect is better and more flexible than the Wood Dragon Technique. In just a moment, Hulk was tightly wrapped by the wooden vines, like an oversized green dumpling. Big guy, I'll say it for the last time, calm down. Chapter 129. To a certain extent, Rog was quite fond of Hulk. Although Hulk is not as smart as Banner, this is also one of his strengths. Banner is too smart, which leads him to think too much sometimes. Hulk is different. If you can get Hulk's approval, even if you ask him to fight the mountain-sized flame giant Surtur, he will not hesitate. So, Rog still prefers to be friends with people like Hulk. But at this time, Hulk obviously has no intention of being friends with him. After being entangled by Wood Release, Great Forest, Hulk not only did not calm down at all, but became more irritable. Gotcha! The vines that wrapped around Hulk began to show signs of breaking under his violent struggle. "Hey! I really don't want to hit you with Wood Golem anymore." Having said that, Rog still silently cast Wood Release, Wood Golem. Because he is on the helicarrier, he can't directly summon Wood Arhat from the ground like before. But this does not affect his use of Wood Golem. If there is no way to use Wood Release after leaving the ground, then Wood Release would be too unimpressive. Under Rog's control, a piece of wood as thick as an arm grew out of his left shoulder. Under the nourishment of chakra, this piece of wood began to grow rapidly. In just a second or two, this piece of wood grew into a 3-meter-tall Wood Arhat. When this Wood Arhat with a long hook-nosed wood dragon wrapped around his body appeared, Rog lifted Wood Release, Great Forest, and let his right hand return to its original state, and at the same time let Hulk regain his freedom. Hulk finally got rid of the wooden vines, but in the next second, Wood Arhat had already rushed in front of him and gave him a beautiful and powerful uppercut. Boom! Caught off guard, Hulk was sent flying by Wood Arhat's punch, and his whole body soared 1 meter into the air. However, Wood Arhat's attack was not limited to this. Before the airborne Hulk landed on the ground, the wooden Arhat used the Gatling Physical Transcendence Fist technique he was best at. Yula 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 Yula, Hulk was like an oversized green sandbag, enduring Arhat's attacks. The muffled sound of impact resounded throughout the entire area. While controlling the wooden Arhat, Rog also used chakra to sense the situation on the mothership. Rogers and Tawny of the American team were repairing the No. 3 engine that was on strike. Nick Fury and Agent Hill were fighting the intruders on the bridge. Thor was in Loki's VIP presidential suite. Wait. How did Thor get into Loki's room? Although Thor and Loki were in the same area, their positions had been reversed. Thor was in the presidential suite, while Loki was outside. Although he didn't know what Thor and Loki had done before, judging from the current situation, Thor had obviously fallen into Loki's trap again. If it was just once, then it would be fine. But in Thor's situation, it was obvious that he had fallen into the same trap again and again. He didn't know if Loki had any hidden passive skills that caused Thor to involuntarily lower his IQ every time he saw him. After a helpless sigh, Rog turned his attention to Natasha. At this time, Natasha wasn't idle either. She was now fighting with Hawkeye Barton. Although Barton didn't have any superpowers and was an archer who was good at long-range attacks. But this didn't mean that he wasn't good at close combat. How could someone who could become a top agent not be good at close combat? After confirming the situation on the mothership, Rog turned his attention back to Hulk. Because he lost his mind, Hulk didn't attack Rog. Instead, he vented all his anger on Arhat. Bang 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 bang. Looking at Hulk and Arhat who were passionately fighting each other like two barbarians, Rog stretched out his right hand again. With Hulk's physical strength, this level of fighting wouldn't be a problem even if it lasted for a day. But Rog didn't intend to waste so much time on Hulk. Wood Release, Wood Dragon Technique. Wood grew out of Rog's right hand again, but this time, it was no longer a wooden vine, but a long hook-nosed wood dragon. When this long hook-nosed wood dragon first appeared, it was only as thick as Rog's arm. But as its body lengthened, the long hook-nosed wood dragon's body also grew rapidly. When the wood dragon came in front of Hulk, the wood dragon's body had soared to 30 or 40 centimeters thick. Hulk, who was attracted by Arhat, didn't notice the arrival of the wood dragon, and in his current state of insanity, even if he found the wood dragon, he might not necessarily avoid it. Without any suspense, the long hook-nosed wood dragon wrapped tightly around Hulk like a python, and then began to absorb Hulk's physical strength. At the same time, Arhat didn't stop his attack. Hulk's body had been entangled by the wood dragon, so the target of Arhat's attack became Hulk's big green head. Bang 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 bang. After controlling Arhat to hit Hulk's head a few times, Rog lifted the wood puppet technique. Although Hulk's skin was rough and his recovery was good, it was still a bit cruel to hit someone's head so hard. Although he had lost his mind now, Rog still couldn't bear it. After being entangled by the wood dragon, there was only one end for Hulk, and that was to be drained of all his physical strength without any resistance. Although Hulk was still struggling hard, Rog turned around and left, completely ignoring Hulk's situation. Anyway, Hulk's end was doomed, and it was the same whether he stayed or not. And he had more important things to deal with now. At this time, next to Loki's presidential suite, Coulson was holding a frightening-looking energy weapon and pointing it at Loki on the console. If Loki pressed the button, Thor, who was locked in a cage, would enjoy a new experience of falling from 9,000 meters vertically. Do you like this? Because of the destroyer you sent, we developed this prototype. I don't know its power, do you want to try it? Coulson pointed the huge energy gun at Loki and said with a serious face. Under Coulson's threat, Loki left the console slightly, and the next second, he disappeared. It was an illusion again. Loki didn't know when he came behind Coulson, and the scepter in his hand stabbed directly at Coulson's back. Just as the side-like blade at the top of the scepter was about to stab Coulson's back, the scepter suddenly stopped. You have guts, you actually want to stab my former customer to death in front of me. Through Thor's coordinates on Loki, Rog immediately teleported over and grabbed the scepter in Loki's hand. Chapter 130. It wasn't until this time that Coulson discovered that Loki had appeared behind him and almost stabbed him. Just a little bit more and he would have reported to death. Thinking of this, Coulson couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Loki didn't expect that Rog would come over at this time. According to the plan, Rog should have been stopping Hulk, who had lost his mind at this time. Hulk was taken care of so quickly. This is not scientific. Loki is not a person who acts blindly like Thor. Since he chose to surrender, he naturally made full preparations and plans. But now, Hulk, the most important person in the plan, did not play a role as expected. Hulk did not destroy S.H.I.E.L.D.'s helicarrier as planned, nor did he contain the actions of Rog and others, nor did he directly destroy S.H.I.E.L.D.'s recovery team from the inside. If I said that this was just a joke, would you believe it? Loki pulled back his scepter, and after finding that the scepter did not move, he took the initiative to let go of his right hand holding the scepter and silently stepped back a few steps. Do you think I would believe it? After throwing the scepter to Coulson, Rog walked slowly towards Loki. If he hadn't arrived in time with the flying thunder god, Coulson would have been lying on the ground bleeding. Wait. Maybe we can discuss it. If you help me conquer the earth, I can give you half of the earth and make you a real king. How about it? Although Loki hasn't really fought with Rog, he knows very well that once they fight, the loser will definitely be himself. Since he can't beat him, it's reasonable to take a step back. Half of the earth, this is definitely a very tempting bargaining chip. Not interested. Rog refused Loki's proposal without even thinking about it. What a joke, if the earth was so easy to conquer, this would not be the earth. Loki doesn't know how many terrifying existences are hidden on this seemingly inconspicuous earth. Not to mention that he only has a Chidori army on hand. Even if Thanos led the entire army, it would be impossible to conquer the earth. Really, that's a pity. Although he didn't expect Rog to agree to his proposal directly from the beginning, Loki still felt sorry after hearing Rog's unhesitant refusal. Why is there no one with Rog's strength on his side? If Rog is willing to stand on his side, then everything will be much simpler. However, there are not so many ifs in this world. Loki can only pull out his only weapon, a knife of more than 10 centimeters long. A mage was forced to fight with a dagger. This was something no one else could do. However, at this moment, Loki's men's. Although he was entangled, he was not the only one who invaded the helicarrier's attack. Ants. Bang 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 bang, fierce gunshots sounded, bullets flew toward Rog's direction. If he was alone, Rog could safely leave here before the bullets hit him. But now, he still needs to take care of Coulson, who is an ordinary person. Wood release, wooden spindle wall. Rog's body quickly rushed out of wood, instantly forming a curved wall, covering himself and Coulson. The flying bullets, without exception, all hit the hemispherical curved wall. There is no doubt about the power of the bullets, but the wood that makes up the wooden spindle wall is not ordinary wood. Clanking sounds rang out continuously. Although the mercenaries' shots were concentrated and accurate, they were still unable to penetrate the wooden spindle wall's defense. You stay here, I'll deal with the people outside. After that, Rog used the body flicker technique to leave the wooden spindle wall. After mastering the sage mode of the Shikatsu forest, his wood-release ninjutsu has increased a lot. Tree World Descent, Great Forest Jutsu, Wooden Spindle Wall, these are the ninjutsu he learned after mastering the sage mode. In addition to these ninjutsu, he also mastered a ninjutsu that he likes, but never used in actual combat. The reason is very simple, because that ninjutsu is too cruel. After using the body flicker technique to leave the defensive range of the wooden spindle wall, Rog quickly glanced at the mercenaries who were attacking. 7 people. After confirming the number of enemies, Rog decisively used a ninjutsu that has never been used in actual combat. Wood release, cutting technique. A wooden spike that was tens of centimeters long grew out of his right arm and connected to his right arm like a dagger. Then, Rog flashed in front of these mercenaries like a ghost. Chi! The wooden spike of Rog's right arm pierced a mercenary's chest like lightning. At the same time, more than 10 wooden spikes as thick as an arm rushed out of the mercenary's body, instantly ending his life. For mercenaries, death is not a rare thing. But the scene in front of them is beyond their imagination. Being completely pierced by wooden spikes, this kind of death is cruel and shocking. Not only were these mercenaries scared, but even Loki and Thor couldn't help but take a deep breath when they saw this scene. Although they didn't personally experience the feeling of more than 10 wooden spikes growing out of the body, they can imagine the extreme pain just by looking at the hedgehog-like mercenary. After killing the first target, Rog didn't stop his footsteps and continued to attack the remaining 6 mercenaries. The 6 mercenaries only lasted for 6 seconds. When these mercenaries were all dead, Rog removed the cutting technique. The removal of the cutting technique didn't make the wooden spikes in the mercenaries disappear, they still kept the miserable way of death. Although these mercenaries didn't give Loki any hope of winning, they bought him a few precious seconds. While Rog was killing the mercenaries, Loki once again returned to the control panel and opened the round hatch under the cage. The moment the hatch was opened, a strong airflow whistled and the temperature began to drop rapidly. After the third engine stopped working, the helicarrier began to rapidly descend, but even so, the helicarrier was still thousands of meters in the air. "You really are a monster," Loki said to Rog with a little helplessness. Then under the gaze of Rog and Thor, he jumped down from the open hatch. Chapter 131. Is this guy addicted to jumping? Last time he jumped to the Bifrost, this time he jumped to the helicarrier. It has to be said that Loki's move was very decisive and surprising. Looking at Loki, who was falling rapidly and getting smaller and smaller, Rog used chakra perception for a few seconds, then came to the console and closed the hatch directly. After being teleported in front of Rog twice in a row, even if Loki's reaction was slow, he realized that something was wrong. Although he couldn't directly erase the flying Thor technique on his body, it wasn't difficult to interfere with the space coordinates transmitted by the flying Thor technique. If he was given enough time, he could even directly create a small space barrier to completely isolate the flying Thor technique. Loki finally showed a little of his sorcerer nature, putting an end to the possibility of Rog's teleportation again. Not long after Loki jumped off the ship, the other intruders on the helicarrier were also eliminated by S.H.I.E.L.D. one by one, and the helicarrier regained its calm again. There are some things that if you don't hurry up, you may never have another chance in the future. Go ask Rogers for an autograph. Coulson is a loyal fan of Rogers, and for this reason, he spent several years collecting a set of out-of-print Team America cards. In the eyes of others, it is very naive for a man in his 40s or 50s to collect this kind of hero card. But in Rog's view, this is not naive, this is a man's original intention and a dream worthy of respect. Thank you. After hearing Rog's words, Coulson was stunned for a moment, and then thanked Rog very seriously. When Coulson left with the prototype weapon and scepter, Rog released Thor from the special cell. How many times has this happened? You can't be like this every time you see Loki. Rog was helpless about Thor's constant falling for Loki's tricks. He's my brother. Thor replied silently. Half an hour later, Rog and Thor returned to the bridge. Except for Dr. Banner, who didn't appear because he was in a coma, everyone else was present. Even Hawkeye Barton, who had just regained his self-consciousness, was present. Loki managed to escape, but the Tesseract is still missing. The mothership's engine is damaged. Communication is cut off. 28 agents were killed, 15 maintenance personnel were killed, and many parts of the mothership were damaged. Nick Fury's face was as pale as his skin. We are indeed using the Rubik's Cube to develop weapons, but I'm not placing all my hopes on this because I have an even bolder plan. I have an idea, the Avenger plan. Both Stark and Rog know about it. I want to gather some people with outstanding abilities and see if their team can be stronger. I want to see if they can fight side by side in critical moments and win those wars that we can't win. Now, it seems that this idea is outdated. We have lost all the opportunities, and we can only watch Loki start a war. After that, Nick Fury left the bridge directly, and the atmosphere in the bridge became more and more depressing. Although Loki's plan did not achieve the expected effect, it was not a complete failure. He successfully bought himself some time. Loki should be in New York now. He is a performer. He needs an audience. He needs a monument towering into the clouds. It's best if his name is engraved on it. Looking at the silent crowd, Rog reminded them while glancing at Tawny. Although Tawny is not a typical performer, Rog is sure that he knows what he is talking about. Arc reactor. Loki needs a powerful enough energy source to open the Tesseract smoothly. If Tawny still can't hear Rog's reminder, then he is not Tawny. New York. Stark Building. Although Loki may also start the Tesseract in other places, as far as the current situation is concerned, Stark Building is still Loki's first choice. Tawny, repair the battle suit as soon as possible. The others will set off with me in the Quinjet and bring Dr. Banner. We need his power. Rogers instinctively began to arrange tasks, and then he saw the eyes looking at him one by one. I have a more convenient way. If you don't mind, I can take you there. Although the flying speed of the Quinjet is not slow, compared to the flying Thor, the Quinjet is nothing. More than 10 minutes later, the prepared people came to the hangar. At Rog's gesture, Rogers and others held the hands of the people next to them and then looked at Rog with a puzzled look. Don't blink, this kind of experience is not common. After grabbing Tawny's shoulder, Rog reminded him one last time and then began to sense the flying Thor in New York. After locking on to one of the flying Thor, he decisively used the flying Thor. In just an instant, their figures disappeared from the hangar. The next second, they were teleported to the roof of a building near Stark Building. Although Team America and the rest were on high alert, they didn't see anything strange. The only thing they felt was that they experienced an extremely brief moment of weightlessness in an instant, and then they were teleported to New York. The trip is over, I hope everyone enjoyed this trip. Before Rog could finish speaking, a blue-white energy beam shot straight into the sky from the roof of Stark Building. When this energy beam flew to an altitude of thousands of meters, a huge circular portal appeared in the blue sky, and Chitauri warriors flew out like locusts. The war has begun. After seeing the scene in front of them, the same thought appeared in everyone's mind. When the Chitauri appeared, Tawny and Thor flew towards Stark Building immediately. Tawny wanted to return to the building to change his battle suit, and Thor wanted to defeat Loki as soon as possible. When the only two flying units left, Rog summoned the Kusanagi sword and the Thunder Fan, and then threw the fan out with force. Rog and others were still wondering why Rog threw the weapon out, and then they saw a scene that did not conform to the laws of physics at all. The fan that Log had thrown out didn't fall to the ground as they had expected. Instead, it drew a beautiful arc in the air and flew back to Log. The Thunder Fan was endowed by Odin with the same flying ability as Thor's hammer. As long as Odin was alive, this enchantment effect would not disappear. Rog didn't like Thor's flying method of being carried by Thor's hammer, so he adopted another flying method. Flying with the fan. Chapter 132. Under the gaze of Rog and the others, Rog stepped on the Thunder Fan and flew straight to Stark Building. Although it looked a little strange to fly on the fan, one had to admit that it was a very cool feeling. When Rog arrived at Stark Building, the first thing he saw was Thor beating up Loki. That's right, it was a real beating. At this time, Thor had no intention of holding back at all. Thor's hammer kept smashing at Loki. Although Loki only had 2 mini daggers in his hands, he showed excellent fighting skills. With those mysterious magic, Loki even suppressed Saul in close combat for a time. Doppelganger, illusion, invisibility, blinding, slow, one magic after another was thrown out by Loki, neutralizing Thor's thunderous attacks. It was not until this time that Loki truly showed his full ability as a mage. While Loki was fighting with Thor, Tawny finally finished changing and put on the latest Mark VII battle suit. After putting on the latest Mark VII, Tawny did not hesitate and immediately joined the battle between Loki and Thor. With the addition of Tawny, Loki, who had been fighting with Thor, suddenly felt a lot of pressure, and he kept retreating. Rog didn't join them in the battle. Instead, he flew to the space gem. Now that the soul gem was missing, the space gem was undoubtedly the most valuable target on the entire battlefield, and it was also the key to determining when the war would end. As long as the portal opened by the space gem was closed, Chidori's army would not be able to invade Earth from distant outer space, and the war would come to an end in advance. Turn it off, Dr. Selvig. After activating the space gem, Dr. Selvig did not leave, but looked at the space gem in front of him with a longing look. It's too late, there's no way to stop it now. It has something to show us, a new universe. Dr. Selvig ignored Rog's request, and his eyes were still shining with a strange light blue light. Up to you. Although he had interacted with Dr. Selvig before, now was not the time to reminisce about old times. Since Dr. Selvig was unwilling to do it, he would do it himself. Rog pulled out the Kusanagi sword from his waist and used Chidori blade. When the Kusanagi sword was wrapped in lightning, Rog jumped down from the fan and stabbed the space gem with the Kusanagi sword. The invincible Kusanagi sword did not pierce the space gem as expected. A layer of energy barrier blocked the tip of the Kusanagi sword. It couldn't pierce through. The moment the Kusanagi sword touched the energy barrier, Rog came to a conclusion. This spatial barrier looked only a few centimeters thick, but it contained an incomparably abundant amount of spatial energy. To put it simply, this barrier was a spatial enchantment created by a spatial gem. Moreover, it was an extremely sturdy one. Unless there was a high-grade energy source of the same nature as the space gem, the only way to break this barrier was to use brute force. After thinking for a few seconds, Rog came in front of Dr. Selvig and directly cast a Sharingan Genjutsu on the doctor. When the Sharingan Genjutsu was lifted, the doctor's consciousness returned to normal. Using the Sharingan Genjutsu to forcefully cover or erase the influence exerted by Loki. After regaining his true self-consciousness, Dr. Selvig first glanced at New York, which had fallen into the flames of war, and then said with annoyance, "Scepter, Loki's scepter can break through the energy barrier of the magic cube. I installed a safety device that can cut off the energy of the space gem." "Impossible, Loki's scepter can't do that. Although the scepter also contains a strong energy, that energy can't compete with the energy of the barrier." It wasn't that Rog didn't believe Dr. Selvig. He had carefully sensed the energy in the scepter before, so he was very sure that the scepter couldn't break through the barrier. "You should be talking about one of Loki's scepters. He has 2 scepters. 2 scepters? Rog found that he had overlooked something. The last time he used Genjutsu to get information from Loki that the scepter came from Thanos. Judging from Loki's performance at that time, this information was true. It was true that the scepter came from Thanos, but Thanos didn't give him 1 scepter, but 2. Habitual thinking is not good. He always thought that there was only 1 scepter, so he only considered whether the scepter was real and whether it was forged by Loki. So he didn't think that Thanos might have given him more than 1 scepter. If he could travel to this world, then it's not impossible for Thanos to give Loki 2 scepters. Thinking of this, he sighed helplessly and then looked at Loki, who was fighting 2 people. This is not a game, nor a movie. There is no so-called fixed plot here. Even if there is some kind of fate here, it can be changed. Doctor, you stay here. If someone comes with a scepter, you tell him how to close it. After that, Rog joined the team attacking Loki. Although Loki used all his skills and threw out magic as if it was free, he still inevitably fell into a situation where he could be defeated at any time. Especially when Rog also joined the battle, the situation became even worse. Although the battle was getting more and more difficult, it has to be said that Loki's performance at this time was perfect. In this extremely unfavorable situation, he not only did not lose quickly, but also took advantage of Rog and others' lack of experience in fighting together to make several threatening counterattacks. You are indeed very strong, but I, Loki, am not an ant that can be pinched by you. As soon as his voice fell, Loki crazily burned the magic in his body, and an amazing momentum gushed out of his body in an instant. Loki began to play with his life. Blinding, slowing, paralyzing, weakening, energy storm, mind erosion, magic missile, flame, lightning, ice storm, one magic after another was instantaneously released. At this moment, Loki proved with practical actions what a magic cannon was. In the face of Loki's crazy output, Rog and the other two had to choose to retreat for the time being. Mages never admit defeat when it comes to output. It turned out that no one who could make a name for himself in Asgard was weak. Although the god of trickery sounded a bit wretched, when he really played with his life, even a weak god could show an unparalleled tyrannical posture. Loki's crazy output directly destroyed the top floor of Stark building, and even the energy beam emitted by the space gem trembled violently in the chaotic and violent magic storm. Chapter 133. When a sorcerer attacks recklessly, the scene will be extremely gorgeous and the power will be beyond imagination. Loki's determination not only successfully forced Rog and the other two to retreat, but also successfully attracted the attention of the Chitauri warriors. Although Loki is only the temporary commander of the Chitauri warriors, after discovering that their commander is facing the enemy's siege, these Chitauri warriors rushed over as soon as possible. After these Chitauri warriors arrived at the Stark building, without any hesitation, they immediately launched an attack on Rog and the other two. Beams of energy shot towards them like a storm. Facing the attack of the Chitauri warriors, Rog and the other two each chose different ways to deal with it. Tani flew away from the Stark building at the first time, and then fought back with the mini missiles on his shoulder and the arc pulse cannon in his hands. Compared with Tani, Thor's counterattack was much more violent. Thor didn't retreat but moved forward, flying directly in front of these Chitauri warriors, and the Thor's hammer in his hand violently smashed these Chitauri warriors. In addition to letting these Chitauri warriors feel the physical attack of Thor's hammer, Thor also summoned lightning from time to time to clear a large area. Among the three, Rog was the only one who stayed in the Stark building. When these energy beams flew towards him, he waved his Kusanagi sword wrapped in lightning and blocked these energy beams one by one. Although this scene looked very unscientific, with the incredible dynamic vision of Sharingan, Rog turned this slightly fantasy scene into reality. It is said that someone can block all the bullets fired by a Gatling gun by just waving a sword. Although Rog hasn't seen this scene with his own eyes, he doesn't think it's impossible. As long as the speed is fast enough, not to mention waving a sword to block bullets, it's not difficult to even catch bullets with bare hands. After blocking all the energy beams shot at him, Rog decisively used the body flicker technique and arrived in front of Loki like lightning. In an instant, the Kusanagi sword in Rog's hand directly pierced Loki's chest. It's an illusion again. After being pierced by the Kusanagi sword, this lifelike illusion quickly collapsed and turned into pure energy dissipating in the air. While the Chitauri warriors were attacking Rog and the other two, Loki once again used his best illusion escape technique. Because of Loki's departure, the number of Chitauri warriors attacking Rog and the other two decreased. It didn't take long for these Chitauri warriors to be completely wiped out by Rog and the other two. Don't worry about Loki, we have a new playmate now. Tani pointed to the portal above. A leviathan flew from the portal. Let's clean these Chitauri warriors first. Thor looked at the leviathan behemoth and flew towards the leviathan. And the leviathan behemoth was not only a large war weapon of the Zatarii, but it was also a troop carrier for the Zatarii. When the leviathan behemoth flew over the buildings in New York, one by one, the Chitauri warriors ejected from it. After Thor left, Rog used psychic technique to summon the white 3-tomo mask that he hadn't worn for a long time. Why, are you worried that these Chitauri warriors will see your face? Tani, who was hovering in the air, asked puzzledly. No, I just don't want to be famous. After putting on the mask, Rog stepped on the round fan and flew towards the Leviathan behemoth. The battle in New York made the whole world aware of the existence of the Avengers. However, Rog didn't want the ordinary people to know what he looked like. Superhero or something, let Tawny and the others do it. When Rog stepped on the round fan and flew near the Leviathan behemoth was punched in the head by Hulk and its whole body fell forward under the influence of inertia. One punch, one Leviathan behemoth. Hulk announced his appearance in his own overbearing way. Just as the Leviathan behemoth was about to fall, Tawny fired a small missile at the Leviathan behemoth. Boom! Stark's products must be the best. Although the small missile launched by Tawny was only the size of an arm, the power of the explosion was beyond imagination. The flesh and blood of the astonishingly large Leviathan instantly splattered everywhere, and its entire body was blasted into several pieces. When the flames of the explosion dissipated, Tawny deliberately turned his head to look at Rog. He seemed to be saying, "Did you see that? This is the power of technology. Give the order, Captain." When everyone gathered together, Hawkeye Barton said to Captain America, "Okay, pay attention. If we can't close the portal, we have to control the situation. Barton, go to the roof and report the whereabouts of the main force and the skirmishers. Stark, you guard the blockade line. Any enemy who runs out of 3 blocks, either rush back or kill them." Captain America immediately arranged the tasks for Hawkeye and Tawny. "Can you give me a ride?" Hawkeye turned to Tawny and asked. "No problem. Hold on tight, Elven Prince." Tawny didn't talk nonsense and went directly to Hawkeye, lifted him up, and then flew to the roof. "Thor, you have to find a way to block the portal and slow down their advance. Can't you summon lightning? Use lightning to strike these bastards. Natasha, you and I stay on the ground and pin down the enemies on the ground." Natasha and Thor's tasks were immediately arranged. As for Hulk and Rog, you two are free to move and attack with all your strength. After hearing Captain America's arrangement, Hulk didn't hesitate and jumped directly to the Chitauri soldiers hanging on the wall. Rog didn't have any objections to Captain America's arrangement. However, he didn't immediately attack like Hulk. Instead, he stood on the round fan and moved his arms, then used the shadow clone technique. Bang 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 bang, under the watchful eyes of Rogers and Natasha of the American team, 50 masked rogues instantly appeared around them. "I'll let you see what a large-scale ninja battle is like." As soon as his voice fell, Rog and the shadow clones instantly disappeared in front of Captain America and Natasha. The Thunder Round fan was left in place by him. A long time ago, he left hundreds of flying Thor techniques in New York. Although some of the techniques were far away from the battlefield, the rest were enough for him to perform a Flying Thor's killing show. And in addition to these Flying Thor techniques, each of the Shadow clones also has a Flying Thor technique. 50 active Flying Thor techniques, plus hundreds of fixed Flying Thor techniques. New York is his home ground of Flying Thor. Chapter 134. The killing has begun. No one could see clearly how Rog did it. When he disappeared with the Shadow clone, the Chitauri warriors lost their lives one by one as if they had ushered in an invisible death. Whether it was on the ground or in the sky, as long as the Chitauri warriors appeared in people's sight, they were all greeted by their elusive and extremely efficient attacks. Flash, attack, death, disappearance, throat, heart, head, chest. Every time Rog and the Shadow clone appeared, they would take the life of at least one Chitauri warrior. Every time they appeared, they would only appear for less than a second. To ordinary people, the Chitauri warriors were difficult to deal with, but in front of them, they were like insignificant ants that could be easily squashed to death. Ninja is a profession born to kill. And Rog has taken the characteristics of the ninja profession to the extreme. Now the Chitauri warriors are not so much invaders as they are more like victims with no resistance. Watching the Chitauri warriors fall from the air one by one, or die on the spot, Captain Rog felt the horror of Rog for the first time. Fortunately, he is on our side. This thought involuntarily emerged in Roger's mind. "Where did you find him?" After dealing with a few blind Chitauri warriors, Rogers asked Natasha, who was next to him. "We didn't find him, but he suddenly appeared in New York a few years ago, and then did something that ordinary people couldn't do at all, so we noticed his existence." While answering Rogers' question, Natasha did not stop her attack and kept pulling the trigger of the pistol. "Haven't you investigated his origin? People with this ability can't appear out of thin air for no reason. Rogers himself became a superhero by injecting the super soldier potion, so he knows very well that ordinary people can never have extraordinary strength for no reason. We have investigated, but we didn't get any useful information. The only thing we can be sure of now is that the identity ID he is using now is fake." Even S.H.I.E.L.D. couldn't find any useful information, and ROG dispelled his plans to investigate ROG's origins afterwards. ROG has many unknown secrets, but as long as he doesn't become a dangerous person like Red Skull, he won't care too much about his past. ROG's efficient killing not only attracted the attention of the American captain, but also of Loki. At this moment, Loki was standing on a Chidori aircraft, looking down at the entire New York. Although Loki was not sad about the death of these Chidori warriors, ROG's efficient killing seriously hindered his conquest plan. "Everyone, attack!" Without any hesitation, Rocky decisively gave the order for the entire army to attack. With Loki's order, more Chidori warriors flew out of the portal. Even 5 or 6 Leviathan beasts appeared. However, not long after these enormous war behemoths appeared, dark thunderclouds quickly appeared in the sky. Then, a huge lightning bolt struck directly at the Leviathan behemoth at the front. With its armor and huge body, the Leviathan behemoth withstood the attack of the giant lightning bolt. However, this persistence only lasted for a few short seconds. The part of the Leviathan behemoth that was struck by lightning began to turn red quickly, and then its entire body burst apart. Boom! The strong explosion not only took away the life of the Leviathan behemoth, but also the lives of the Chidori warriors around the portal. The wreckage of the Leviathan behemoth and the corpses of the Chidori warriors fell from the sky like meteorites, creating an alternative fireworks show. Thor's lightning attack this time was not as simple and crude as Hulk's punch, but the visual effect was more shocking than Hulk's punch. When the lightning disappeared, Thor, who was standing at the top of the Empire State Building, couldn't help but gasp for breath. This lightning bolt was not only the strongest lightning he had summoned so far, but it was also the most energy-consuming lightning bolt. Although a Leviathan behemoth was quickly dealt with, the attack of the Chidori army was not greatly affected. Leviathan behemoths continued to fly out of the portal. When Thor used the powerful lightning to deal with a Leviathan behemoth, Rog also teleported to the top of a building and temporarily stopped his harvesting of the Chidori soldiers. Of course, only his original body stopped. His shadow clone was still efficiently carrying out the harvesting of the Chidori soldiers' lives. Hulk used a punch to deal with a Leviathan behemoth, Thor used a lightning bolt to deal with a Leviathan behemoth, and Rog certainly couldn't fall behind. After observing the flight trajectory of the Leviathan behemoths, a Rasengan wrapped in lightning appeared in his right hand. Thor was not the only one who could play with lightning. Raiton Spiral Electromagnetic Gun. After aiming at 2 of the Leviathan behemoths, Rog fired the spiral electromagnetic gun in his hand. Bang! A thunder-like sound suddenly sounded, and the spiral electromagnetic gun drew a pale blue light in the air that symbolized destruction and death. Almost at the same time as this thunder-like sound, the spiral electromagnetic gun had already arrived in front of the first target. The armored Leviathan behemoth was instantly pierced through like a soft cake in front of the spiral electromagnetic gun. After piercing through the first Leviathan behemoth, the spiral electromagnetic gun did not slow down and quickly arrived in front of the second target. Boom! A dazzling fireball like the sun appeared in an instant, and the shock wave generated by the explosion instantly cleared the entire surrounding airspace. The airwave swept through New York like a level 12 hurricane. Spiral electromagnetic gun, 1 shot, Soul. It's nothing to deal with a Leviathan with 1 attack. I, Rog, can take away 2 with 1 attack. This is a man's damn competitive spirit. After dealing with the 2 Leviathan behemoths, Rog also saw the high and mighty Loki in the air. But what attracted his attention at this time was not Loki, but the scepter in Loki's hand. Did the real thing finally appear? After discovering Loki's trace, Rog immediately summoned the rumbling thunder fan that he had abandoned in place. Flying around the building was enough as long as he had the flying thunder god. But if it's a high-altitude battle, the rumbling fan is still necessary. After receiving Rog's summoning command, the rumbling thunder fan, which was floating silently in the air, flew towards him like a missile. Loki, I'm going to eat you. Chapter 135. Whether it's for the 200 ninja coins or for the scepter in Loki's hand, Rog needs to settle things with Loki. After seeing Rog flying towards him, Loki didn't hesitate and turned away. When it's time to play with your life, and when it's time to admit defeat, admit defeat. This is Loki's philosophy of survival. As he turned away, Loki didn't forget to arrange a large number of Chidori warriors to stop Rog. Although these Chidori warriors can't defeat Rog, it's not a problem to stop him. Raiton, Chidori sharp spear. The 5-meter-long Chidori sharp spear instantly appeared in Rog's right hand, and then cut the Chidori warriors in front of him into 2 pieces like cutting vegetables and melons. With just a few casual slashes, the Chidori warriors who were responsible for stopping Rog turned into pieces of corpses and fell from the sky. After dealing with these Chidori warriors, Rog once again flew towards Loki. Although the thunder round fan is not a special flying tool, the flying speed of the round fan is not slower than the Chidori's aircraft. It didn't take long for Rog to catch up with Loki. Seemingly realizing that he can't get rid of Rog, Loki also began his counterattack. Magic was released one after another, various fireballs, ice, and lightning were constantly smashing towards Rog. At the same time, more and more Chidori warriors joined the team attacking Rog. With the advantage of distance, Loki didn't hesitate to cast all kinds of magic, and the scepter in his hand was constantly emitting energy beams. It has to be said that Loki's kiting tactic is the most suitable way for a mage to fight. If Rog is only good at close combat, then he really can't do anything to Loki now. But fortunately, he is not the kind of ninja who can only fight in close combat. After cleaning up the Chidori warriors again, Rog put away the Kusanagi sword and took out 3 flying Thor kunai. In addition to the round fan under his feet, there was also the flying thunder god kunai that was enchanted by Odin himself. Without any hesitation, Rog directly threw out the 3 flying Thor kunai in his hand. Clang! 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 3 flying Thor kunai flew towards Loki like bullets, but they were blocked one by the scepter in Loki's hand. That's it? After easily resolving Rog's kunai attack, a look of disdain appeared on Loki's face. However, at this moment, Rog, who was originally stepping on the round fan, suddenly disappeared. Not good. Although Loki didn't know what Rog was going to do, the moment Rog disappeared, he immediately became alert. Just as he was looking around for Rog, he once again saw the 3 Thor kunai. The flying Thor kunai that was blocked by him not only did not fall as he expected, but also attacked him again. Thor's hammer could automatically attack the enemy under the control of Thor. Of course, Rog's flying Thor kunai could do the same. 3 flying Thor kunai, 3 different angles of attack. Although the flying Thor kunai's attack was very fast, Loki's reaction was not slow either. Just as the flying Thor kunai was about to hit Loki's body, a layer of barrier invisible to the naked eye appeared on his body, like a small defensive barrier, completely protecting him. Magic barrier. Once again, the flying thunder god kunai returned without success. The flying thunder god kunai that struck the mana barrier bounced back as if it had struck a steel plate. Flying Thor's second Dan. At the moment when the flying Thor kunai bounced back, Rog, who had disappeared, suddenly appeared behind Loki, holding one of the flying Thor kunai in his left hand. Odima Rasengan. Loki noticed the appearance of Rog and instantly added several defensive magic to himself. But all of this was meaningless. The Odima Rasengan hit his back in an instant, and an irresistible force enveloped his whole body in an instant, blasting him out. After Loki smashed through several buildings in an irregular rotating posture, he finally resolved the terrible impact of the Odima Rasengan. Although Loki was knocked out, Rog welcomed another enemy. A leviathan rushed toward him like an angry bull, and at the same time, it opened its car-sized mouth. Although the Leviathan's attack speed was not slow, it was still a bit whimsical to bite Rog. As long as Rog wanted, he could even leave the moment the Leviathan bit him. But at this time, not only did he have no intention of leaving, but he stepped on the round fan and jumped directly in front of the Leviathan. Wood release cutting technique. A wooden thorn more than 1 meter long gushed out of his right hand, and then, it fiercely pierced into the Leviathan's huge right eye. Ouch! The Leviathan let out a bestial howl of pain. The moment the howl sounded, thick wooden thorns sprang out of the Leviathan's body. The Leviathan's howl came to an abrupt end, and at the same time, its life ended. After the death of the Leviathan, it fell from the sky like a meteorite and hit the ground heavily, setting off a huge cloud of dust. This was the third Leviathan that had died at his hands. After dealing with the Leviathan, Rog stepped on the round fan and flew to the place where Loki fell. Then, he saw a somewhat familiar scene. Enough, who do you think you are? I'm a god, you idiot. Loki roared angrily at Hulk and succeeded in stopping Hulk's advance. You ant, don't even think about. Loki wanted to say something more, but he was only halfway through when Hulk grabbed his right leg. In the next few seconds, Rog witnessed an inhumane scene. Asgard's god of trickery, the commander of the Chidori army, the frost giant Loki, was thrown by Hulk like trash on the ground. Bang 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 bang, every time Hulk swung, he would leave an obvious pit on the ground, and at the same time, he would bury a psychological shadow in Loki's heart that would never heal. The dull sound of the impact made Rog, who was in the audience, feel a little reluctant. At the same time, he couldn't help but think about a question. If Loki was killed by Hulk like this, would the system admit that the commission was completed? Just as Rog was considering whether to stop Hulk so that he wouldn't accidentally smash Loki to death, Hulk finally stopped this action that would cause great harm to Loki's body and mind. What a weak god. After throwing Loki down, Hulk didn't forget to add another sentence. Well done. When Hulk came in front of him, Rog gave his evaluation. Although Loki was lying motionless in the pit, he was still alive, or rather, his body was still alive. As for whether his spirit was still alive, that was not within Rog's consideration. Chapter 136. After venting his anger on Loki, Hulk left with satisfaction and continued his battle against the soldiers. Rog went straight to Loki and looked at him seriously. There were no fractures, no missing arms or legs. Except for the fact that his mental state didn't look too good, Loki now looked very healthy. After confirming Loki's current state, Rog sighed with a little helplessness. An alien race like Loki really can't take a beating. First, he took his Odama Rasengan, and then he took Hulk's inhumane attack. But even so, Loki was still alive, and he didn't even have a serious injury. That's if the mental injury doesn't count. After silently sighing in his heart, Rog picked up the scepter that fell to the side. In terms of appearance, this scepter is exactly the same as the one currently kept on the helicarrier. But the moment he picked up the scepter, Rog felt the difference between the two. An extremely hidden energy entered his body through his right hand, and then quietly flowed to his brain. If he hadn't been prepared and was extremely sensitive to energy, he wouldn't have been able to discover the existence of this energy. Since the existence of this energy has been discovered, it's naturally easy to deal with it. With a thought, chakra in his body intercepted the external energy and then forced the energy out of his body. Then, his right hand holding the scepter also shone with a burst of blue-white chakra light. After protecting his right hand, he carefully perceived the dark blue gem at the top of the scepter. Sure enough, inside this dark blue gem, there is a small yellow gem hidden. Soul Gem finally appeared. After perceiving the existence of the Soul Gem, Rog decisively ended his perception. If you don't seek death, you won't die. Using mental power to touch the Soul Gem, you can just think about it in your mind. Loki is lying down, the scepter is in his hand, and it's time to put an end to this war. With the scepter in his right hand and Loki in his left hand, Rog returned to Stark Building on his Thunder Fan. Because of Loki's previous crazy output, the top floor of Stark Building had completely disappeared. The platform where the space gem was placed was the current roof of Stark Building. Doctor, How do we shut this thing down? Rog did not give the scepter to Dr. Selvig. This kind of ritualistic thing had to be done personally to have a commemorative meaning. Just use the tip of the scepter to press against the energy interface under the Rubik's Cube. It had to be said that the doctor's method of closing the back door was simple and crude. Just as Rog was about to use the scepter to pierce the energy barrier outside the space gem, he suddenly remembered something. After taking out a small communicator from his pocket and hanging it to his ear, Rog said, "Everyone, if you don't have any objections, I plan to close the portal above. If there's anyone who hasn't had enough fun, I can close it later. Turn it off immediately." Rogers of the American team was the first to speak. "No, wait." Tawny's voice followed. "Stark, the enemies are still pouring in." Team America's first reaction was that Tawny was the person who Rog said hadn't had enough fun. "There's a nuclear bomb flying here and it will explode in a minute," Tawny explained immediately. After hearing Tawny's words, the communicator quickly quieted down. Nuclear bomb. The people of the Security Council finally made the decision that Rog was familiar with. Nothing had changed. "I've already thought about where to send it." After a few seconds of silence, Tawny's voice came again from the communicator. It didn't take long for Rog and the others to see Tawny carrying the nuclear bomb flying straight towards Stark Building, and then rushing directly into the portal in the air. Tawny disappeared into the portal with the nuclear bomb. A few seconds later, the flying Leviathan behemoth began to fall, and the Chidori warriors, who were originally alive and kicking, also fell to the ground at the same time. Through the portal, a huge fireball as blazing as the sun could be seen. However, Tawny's figure did not appear again. "Close the portal." Roger's voice was heard again. "Wait a minute." Rog also gave his answer directly. Rog's refusal made Rog stunned for a moment, and then he remembered that Rog was not a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. or the Avengers. Although Rog participated in this battle, strictly speaking, he was only foreign aid hired by Nick Fury. They didn't have to wait long before Tawny's figure reappeared in the portal. However, Tawny did not fly out of the portal, but fell in a free-falling state. When Tawny reappeared, Rog closed the portal with his scepter. Without the continuous energy output from the space stone, the portal in the sky quickly disappeared and the sky returned to its original appearance. He didn't slow down at all. Thor soon found that something was wrong and immediately waved the Thor's hammer in his hand, intending to catch the falling Tawny. However, Hulk moved faster than him. Hulk pounced on the falling Tawny like a giant ape, and his stout right arm directly hugged Tawny, and the two of them crashed into the outer wall of the building next to them. After using the outer wall of the building to resolve most of the impact, Hulk jumped again and returned to the ground with Tawny. To be precise, they fell to the ground. With the sturdy Hulk as a buffer, Tawny did not bear too much impact. However, Hulk soon found that something was wrong and pushed Tawny out. Captain America and Thor immediately rushed to Hulk and Tawny's side. When Thor violently tore off the visor of Tawny's helmet, Captain America's voice sounded. "Is he still alive?" At this time, Tawny was motionless like a corpse with his eyes closed. Captain America put his ear to Tawny's chest, but he did not hear anything. Rog did not go down immediately. When Tawny was still falling, he used chakra perception to perceive Tawny's state. Tawny was not dead yet, and the life energy in his body still existed, but Captain America and the others did not know this. However, they soon found out that after Hulk let out a sorrowful roar, Tawny woke up with a start. "What the hell, what's going on? No one gave me mouth-to-mouth resuscitation." Tawny gasped for breath and asked with a shocked expression. Chapter 137. The Terminator of the Atmosphere. The originally solemn and stirring atmosphere instantly disappeared after Tawny spoke. "We won." Rogers of the American team looked away from Tawny and said tiredly, "Guys, good job. Let's not go to work tomorrow and give ourselves a day off. Have you eaten Turkish barbecue? There's a Turkish barbecue restaurant 2 streets away. I haven't been there, but I want to try it." If it weren't for the fact that Tawny was still lying on the ground with obvious scars all over his armor, he would have thought that Tawny was dead. Based on his current appearance, no one would think that he was the superhero who had carried a nuclear bomb into the portal. It's not over yet? Thor didn't reject Tawny's suggestion, but he looked up at the Stark Tower that had lost its top floor. Then we'll go later. A few minutes later, Thor and the others came to the platform where the space gem was placed. They saw Loki, who was in a daze, and Rog, who had been waiting for them. The scepter and Loki are both here. You can do whatever you want with them. After that, Roger tossed the scepter in his hand to Rogers of the American team. Although there was a soul gem in the scepter, Rog didn't plan to keep it for himself. Or rather, he didn't plan to do so yet. After taking the scepter from Rog, Captain America looked at him in confusion and asked, "Is this scepter different from the previous one?" "This one is a little more powerful," Rog answered casually. As for the soul gem in the scepter, he didn't plan to tell him now. If possible, he hoped that the future would develop in the direction he was familiar with as much as possible. Whether or not Ultron and Illusion would be born wasn't his main concern. What he really cared about was Scarlet Witch Walter. "I definitely don't want Walter's body. I just care about Walter's superpower." "Yes, only her superpower." "Absolutely." According to his plan, Walter's superpower was the key to activating the Mangekyo. Although he could also directly exchange for the Mangekyo in the system, considering that this evolution required 300 ninja coins, he decisively gave up on this plan. That was 300 ninja coins. As for the most orthodox way of upgrading, experiencing great negative emotions, such as witnessing the death of a loved one, this was not in his consideration from the beginning. After completing the final handover, they finally went to the Turkish barbecue restaurant that Tawny had mentioned and had a depressing lunch. Time passed in a flash. Unknowingly, a week had passed since the Battle of New York. In the past week, S.H.I.E.L.D. showed its existence in a high-profile manner, dealing with the various problems left over from the Battle of New York. The corpses of the Chidori warriors, various alien weapons and technology, collateral damage caused by the war, and the guidance and control of public opinion. Although S.H.I.E.L.D. started various post-war treatment measures in the first place, the existence of the Avengers still spread throughout the world. Iron Man Tony Stark, Captain America Steve Rogers, Hulk Banner, Thor, Black Widow Natasha, Hawkeye Barton, and the mysterious Masked Man. Although Rog was not a member of the Avengers from the beginning to the end, people tacitly agreed that he was one of them. It couldn't be helped. After all, he acted like he was on steroids during the battle. Fortunately, Rog had considered this problem from the beginning and had always been wearing his three-tomo mask. Therefore, probably, perhaps, not many people knew his true identity. S.H.I.E.L.D. took Loki's scepter, and Thor took the Tesseract and Loki. Tony and Banner, two people with high IQs, hooked up together and carried out some research that ordinary people can't understand. Rogers, Natasha, and Barton began their respective vacations and were currently in a state of disconnection. After handing over Loki to the replicator, the Systems Commission finally changed to a completed state and sent 200 ninja coins to Rog. In addition to the 40 ninja coins he originally had, the number of unconsumed ninja coins reached 240, which was a small savings. In general, everything was similar to what he expected, except for one thing that he didn't expect at all. His law firm had been destroyed. Before leaving the firm, he also specifically told Erica and others to be ready to fight and protect the firm. But he never thought that the invasion of the Chidori army would still destroy his firm. To be precise, the person who destroyed his firm was not the Chidori warriors, but the abomination, Bronsky. He didn't know if this guy was angry or he couldn't control his destructive power for a while. When killing those Chidori warriors, the abomination successfully destroyed the firm. It was so damaged that there was no need to repair it, because the entire office building had collapsed. After saving all the things in the firm that were still worth saving, Rog said goodbye to the firm that had accompanied him for several years and then chose a new office location. This time, he didn't choose those remote streets. Instead, he directly moved his office to the famous Empire State Building. Not only that, he also canceled the Rog Detective Agency that he had used for several years and registered a new company. Konoha Private Military and Security Consulting Company. In the country of the United States, private military companies are completely legal. The premise is to pay taxes on time. Erica and others had no doubts about ROG's change of the detective agency into a private military company. From the beginning, they didn't think that ROG's firm was a detective agency. Have you ever seen a detective agency whose main business is fighting and killing? Only an outlier like ROG would make this kind of business the main business of a detective agency. Therefore, changing it to a private military company is more in line with their current situation. But there was one thing they didn't understand. That was why ROG changed the name of the company to Konoha. In this regard, ROG's explanation was only a short sentence. Where the leaves of Konoha fly, the fire grows endlessly. After changing the firm to a private military company, ROG's commissions finally became normal. The commissions of rich women asking for children, assisting the rich second generation to pick up girls, finding lost cats and dogs, and so on completely disappeared in front of them. Plain days passed, and more than a month after moving to the Empire State Building, ROG finally received a commission recognized by the system. Commission content: capture the uncontrollable lizard test body in the sewers of New York. Commission status: incomplete. Commission reward: 30 ninja coins. Chapter 138. The uncontrollable lizard test subject in the sewer. ROG didn't plan to take the commission himself, but he changed his mind after seeing that the client was Oscorp's head of security. Oscorp is a large group as famous as Stark Industries, and both are important suppliers to the U.S. military. However, unlike Stark Industries, which specializes in energy and military technology, Oscorp's main research direction is in the field of biotechnology. Green Goblin Norman Osborn, Green Goblin 2 Harry Osborn, Spider-Man Peter Parker, Lizard Professor Kurt Connors, Octopus Dr. Octopus Octavius, Electric Man Max, Rhino Man. After accepting the commission from Oscorp, ROG's mind flashed through the names of people who were more or less related to Oscorp. Sky, come in for a second. ROG pressed the office phone on the desk and called Sky in from the next office. Although the company was moved to the Empire State Building, the newly established Konoha private military company still maintained its original streamlined appearance. Simply put, there are still only 5 of them in the whole company. The only change is that everyone has their own office. Even Frank the Punisher and Bronsky the Abomination have their own offices. But because of their appearance, they haven't really been to the new company yet. What's the matter? After entering ROG's office, Sky sat down in front of ROG and said casually, "Help me look up a man called Peter Parker. He should still be an elementary school student now, or maybe he is already in middle school. I want all his information." Peter Parker? Elementary school student? Yes. Although she didn't know what ROG was going to do, Sky happily accepted the task. After the Battle of New York, ROG made a small deal with Sky. Sky would become a part of the company and would be responsible for information and intelligence gathering. In return, ROG will help her find information about her parents. Sky wanted to investigate by herself, but after S.H.I.E.L.D.'s high-profile appearance, she found that she could never investigate the information she wanted from S.H.I.E.L.D. alone. So, she had the idea of ROG, who was mistaken by the outside world as a member of the Avengers. Then, there was that little deal. When Sky left, ROG once again picked up the information provided by Oscorp and browsed it carefully. Due to an experimental accident, a certain experimental lizard had a mutated body similar to that of a human. Strong, agile, berserk, has a certain degree of intelligence, and a green appearance. The information provided by Oscorp was very limited. But this was normal. After all, the specific information and data belonged to Oscorp's trade secrets, and they had no need to disclose it to the public. According to Oscorp, this was a mutant lizard. However, if he was not mistaken, this was not a mutant lizard at all. This was the lizard professor himself. According to the head of security, in order to catch this mutant lizard, they had lost a lot of manpower, so they had to entrust it to a private military company. Unfortunately, all of the private military companies that accepted the commission failed without exception. Finally, under the recommendation of a reliable person, they found this ROG, Konoha's private military company that was just established a month ago. In the field of private military companies, Konoha is a completely new company. But Konoha's price is no less than that of those established companies. A single commission starts at least $10 million, and the full payment must be paid in advance. If it wasn't for the fact that there was no other way, Oscorp wouldn't have found Konoha and paid $30 million for it. During the war in New York, they flew in the sky, and now they have to drill into the sewers. But for the sake of $30 million and 30 ninja coins, the sewers will do. After putting down the information in his hand, Rog used the shadow clone jutsu. Bang bang bang, 8 shadow clones appeared in front of him in an instant. Things like drilling into the sewers should be done as little as possible. So he decisively handed over the early investigation work to the shadow clone jutsu. These 8 shadow clones will go to the places where Dr. Lizard appeared before to see if they can find the current whereabouts of Dr. Lizard. As long as they can determine a general range, he can use chakra perception to lock the exact location of Dr. Lizard. Although he can also use chakra perception to find traces of Dr. Lizard now, it will be very tiring, very tiring. New York currently has a population of about 20 million people. Dr. Lizard's life energy intensity will be stronger than normal ordinary people, but it definitely won't reach the point where it can be found at a glance. Instead of looking for it himself, it's better to let the shadow clone jutsu determine a general range first. Anyway, the shadow clone jutsu won't have any problem with drilling into the sewers. When the shadow clone jutsu was about to leave the office with the flying thunder god, he suddenly remembered something. All of you, turn into Nick Fury. He's also the president of a private military company, and he still needs to give face. As for Nick Fury, he shouldn't mind being seen in the sewers. With the title of F*King Fakur, it's impossible for him to mind these trivial matters. After the shadow clone jutsu left, Rog also returned home with the flying thunder god. He then started playing Berserker's Creed, which he still hasn't cleared yet. A few hours later, just as he controlled a certain Kong-style assassin who didn't want to reveal his name to complete a perfect infiltration, he received feedback that one of the shadow clones took the initiative to deactivate. At the same time, the feedback was the information that the shadow clone found. It's time to work. After deactivating the other 7 shadow clones, Rog summoned the Kusanagi sword and the 3 Tomo mask, and then the flying thunder god went to the last location of the shadow clone jutsu. After teleporting into the sewers, the first thing he did was to erase the flying Thor tactic left behind by the shadow clone jutsu. There are enough flying Thor tactics in New York, there's no need to leave another one in a place where it can only teleport once. After erasing the flying Thor tactic, he used chakra perception to sense the surrounding situation. It's really here. Putting on the 3 Tomo mask, he moved quickly on the walls of the sewers in a way that didn't conform to the law of gravity. Spider-Man wasn't the only one who could walk on the walls. As he continued to move forward, he encountered more and more lizards. There were all kinds of lizards, big and small. These lizards seemed to be summoned from the depths of their souls as they crawled forward one by one. Chapter 139. What is charm? That's it. Dr. Lizard probably didn't expect that he would have such great charm after transforming. The only pity was that his damned charm was only effective on lizards. If his attractiveness could work on humans, then he could become the superstar of this era. But now, he could only become a superstar in the eyes of lizards. You are electricity, you are light, you are the only legend. In the hearts of these lizards, Dr. Lizard was their god. He was their everything, their entire world. After following these brainless lizards for a while, Rog finally saw the goal of his trip. A lizard man with a height of 2 to 3 meters. When he saw the lizard doctor also saw him. However, Dr. Lizard didn't attack him immediately, but curiously looked at the uninvited guest wearing a mask. Dr. Lizard was no stranger to the 3 Tomo mask on Rog's face. To be precise, no one was unfamiliar with it. This was the mask of the Avengers' masked man. After the Battle of New York, the Avengers became famous. The consequence of becoming famous was that they had a lot of fans and a lot of derivative products. Iron Man figurines, Hulk dolls, Hawkeye's bow model, Thor's hammer toy, the mask of the masked man. As long as you can think of it, there is nothing they can't do. Even Rog himself bought several of the same figurines and placed them at home. He had to say that those figurines were quite realistic. Especially the one where he stood on the round fan and waved the Kusanagi sword, it was particularly exquisite. And as far as he knew, the top toy companies that were selling the best were acquired by Tawny some time ago. This also led to the products of Hulk, Thor, Rog, and others often being inexplicably out of stock. And Iron Man figurines had the most styles and never ran out of stock. At first sight, Dr. Lizard thought that Rog was a loyal fan of the Masked Man. However, he soon found that something was wrong. Rog was standing on the wall. After discovering this, Dr. Lizard's pupils involuntarily shrank a little. This guy is really the Masked Man. In an instant, several thoughts flashed through his mind. I am not an alien. After a few seconds of silence, Dr. Lizard finally said his first sentence. If he could, Dr. Lizard would never use this sentence as an opening remark. However, his current appearance forced him to do so. Although he doesn't look like a Chidori, his current appearance is also completely different from a human. The Avengers were famous for fighting against the invasion of aliens. After confirming that Rog was the Masked Man, his first reaction was that he was mistaken as an alien. That attracted Rog. I know you're not an alien. Rog did not expect the lizard professor's first sentence to be this. Then can I leave? Dr. Lizard suppressed the beast-like killing instinct in his heart and tried his best to speak in a harmless tone. If it weren't for the fact that it was a little difficult to smile now, he would definitely have a smile when he said this. The serum affected Dr. Lizard's mind to a certain extent, but it didn't make him lose all his rationality. Although he now felt that he was a perfect creature that surpassed humans, he was not arrogant enough to compete with the Masked Man. On the internet, there were a few highlights of Rog's battle with the Leviathan behemoth. Dr. Lizard just happened to watch these videos. Leave? Of course not. You are my mission target, and I have something I need your help with. Rog's tone was as calm as ever, but in Dr. Lizard's ears, it was no different from a bolt from the blue. After hearing Rog's answer, Dr. Lizard was silent. Then, he exploded. F***ck the mission target. F***ck the Masked Man. I'm a perfect creature in the history of evolution, the future of mankind, the master of the world. Not sure if he was provoked by Rog's words, or if he couldn't suppress the wild instinct in his heart, Dr. Lizard changed his previous caution and directly pounced on Rog. His courage was commendable. Unfortunately, it was useless. When Dr. Lizard's left claw, which was about the size of his chest, was 1 meter in front of him, he pulled out the Kusanagi sword from his waist. Lightning release, Chidori blade. The Kusanagi sword wrapped in electricity drew a beautiful arc. A glass-like smooth cut appeared on Dr. Lizard's left arm. The huge left claw fell directly into the sewage of the sewer, and bright red blood spurted out from the cut. When the blood was about to touch him, Rog used the teleportation technique to leave here. Dr. Lizard slammed into the wall where Rog was standing before, and then hung on it like a real gecko. The pain from his left arm not only didn't calm Dr. Lizard down, but it made him even crazier as he howled crazily. Then, under Rog's gaze, Dr. Lizard's left claw grew back. In just a short 2 to 3 seconds, his left arm returned to its original state. This kind of recovery ability was very good. Although there was a problem with Dr. Lizard's serum, which made him unable to maintain his human form. But he had to admit that his design concept was correct. He did have the ability to regenerate broken limbs, and it was a very amazing ability. After his left arm recovered, Dr. Lizard didn't hesitate and pounced on Rog again. With 1 claw, he could tear this damn Masked Man in half. He only needed to succeed once. To a certain extent, Dr. Lizard's tactic was correct. However, he neglected a very serious problem. That was, there was no way he could catch Rog. If he was in his normal human form, Dr. Lizard might have considered this point. But obviously, he didn't have this kind of rational thought right now. Facing Dr. Lizard who pounced on him again, Rog didn't hold back and slashed with the Kusanagi sword again. Relying on his speed that far exceeded Dr. Lizard's, Log easily dodged Dr. Lizard's pounce, and then gave him 2 slashes. Since you can't calm down with one hand, then I'll break two. If you can't calm down with two hands, then I'll cut off your legs as well. He was a master of physical persuasion. After missing again, Dr. Lizard couldn't hang on the wall like before, and fell to the sewer floor with his broken hands. Without both hands, he couldn't hang on the wall even if he wanted to. He was a lizard, not a gecko. Chapter 140. Even if he really was a gecko, he couldn't stick to the wall without his hands. A few seconds after falling on the floor of the sewer, Dr. Lizard's hands grew back and he continued to show off his strength at Rog. Just when Rog thought that this guy was still unwilling to give up, the lizard doctor did something that he did not expect. He decisively turned around and ran. Dr. Lizard's beast instinct drove him to attack Rog, and now, it was the same beast instinct that drove him to escape. The strong desire to survive made Dr. Lizard burst out with astonishing speed and quickly disappeared around the corner of the sewer. New York sewers were much more complicated than the streets. In this labyrinthine sewer network, there were all kinds of unknown corners or corners. As long as he could successfully open up a distance, even if it was only for a short period of time, he could get rid of Rog. Dreams were plentiful, but reality was skinny. Dr. Lizard's escape speed was indeed fast, but Log's speed was even faster. Seeing Rog getting closer and closer, Dr. Lizard's potential was further stimulated and he began to accelerate. Run like crazy. It was not fast enough, he had to be faster. Dr. Lizard displayed a speed that was completely out of line with his current size. He ran like a mad bull. However, he would never have thought that Rog was purposely suppressing his speed at this moment. He didn't want to catch up to Dr. Lizard. If he remembered correctly, Dr. Lizard's state was not stable. As long as the effect of the serum was completely consumed, Dr. Lizard would return to his human form. Dr. Lizard, whose mind was affected by the serum, was not a qualified person to talk to. He was waiting for Dr. Lizard to turn back into Cotter Connors. Under his deliberate expulsion, the serum in Dr. Lizard's body was quickly consumed. As if he realized that he had no hope of getting rid of Rog, Dr. Lizard stopped his meaningless run and turned to face Rog. "What do you want?" Dr. Lizard didn't attack Rog as he roared in a helpless tone. "I said before, you are my mission target, I need you to complete the mission. But before completing the mission, I need you to do me a small favor." Rog's tone was as calm as ever. "You come with me." After that, Dr. Lizard ignored Rog and went straight to his secret laboratory. After following Dr. Lizard in the sewer for a while, Rog saw Dr. Lizard's slightly shabby simple laboratory. Not long after returning to the laboratory, Dr. Lizard changed back to Cotter Connor's appearance under his nose. "Put this on, I'm not used to talking to men without clothes." Rog threw a white coat on the table to Connors. After putting on his clothes, Dr. Connors sat straight on the only chair and said, "Tell me, what do you want to do?" "Two things. First, I'll give you to Oscorp. Second." Before Roger could finish, Dr. Connors interrupted him. "Aren't you S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Avenger? Is this a deal between S.H.I.E.L.D. and Oscorp?" "I'm not S.H.I.E.L.D., I'm not an Avenger, and I have nothing to do with Oscorp. As for whether S.H.I.E.L.D. has any deal with Oscorp, I don't know, and I don't want to know. You, listen carefully, don't interrupt me." After confirming that Dr. Connors had fully and thoroughly understood what he meant, Rog continued, "Oscorp gave me a commission, so I'm going to give you to them. Whether you want to or not, this is your ending. As for whether you can escape from Oscorp, that's your business. Second, do you remember Richard Parker? You are both experts in the field of cross-species genetics. The difference is that one of you studied spiders and the other studied lizards." "Of course I remember him. He was a genius scientist. Unfortunately, an accident took his life." Dr. Connors certainly remembered Richard. They had a lot of dealings with each other when conducting cross-species genetic research. "If I give you a blood sample that can perfectly integrate Richard Parker's mutant spider, can you restore Richard Parker's equation and make appropriate modifications? If there is only one Spider-Man in the world, it would be too boring. And who said that Spider-Man can only be a man? Spider-Gwen and Spider-Silk are both women. Restore the equation?" Richard's research was not completed at all. The mutant spiders he developed could not be used for any species experiments at all. Dr. Connors knows exactly how far Richard's experiment has gone. Oscorp now has a large group of Richard's mutant spiders. But those mutant spiders have no experimental value at all except for their own mutation. No, he succeeded, it's just that you didn't find the right key. Rog gave a big news that Dr. Connors never thought of. Richard succeeded? How is this possible? Impossible, it's absolutely impossible. Oscorp has tried all species, and those mutant spiders can't integrate with any species at all. Dr. Connors said excitedly, not believing the news Rog gave him at all. Believe it or not, I just want to know, if there is such a blood sample, can you restore the equation? Looking at Rog's serious face, Dr. Connors thought seriously. If you really have such a blood sample, I should be able to restore the equation. But why should I help you? You're going to give me to Oscorp. Do you think I'll help you restore the equation? Although Rog hasn't said it clearly, recalling what he said before, Dr. Connors has roughly guessed something. You'll help me. There are 2 reasons. Your equation is not stable. Richard's equation can allow you to perfect your equation and really restore your right hand. Rog pointed to Dr. Connors' empty right arm, and then continued, second, you don't really have a choice. When I give you to Oscorp, if you're lucky, they'll continue to let you do research, but you'll lose your freedom and become a tool of Oscorp. If you're unlucky, you should know exactly what will happen to you. I won't say much, after all, you're an expert in this field. But if you're willing to help me, then you're my friend. For friends, I usually help them solve some problems they can't solve. For example, let them not be bullied, or have freedom. After that, Rog stopped talking and waited silently for Dr. Connors' answer. Chapter 141. Dr. Connors didn't answer immediately, but bowed his head silently, as if seriously thinking about Rog's proposal. Rog didn't urge Dr. Connors because he could already guess Dr. Connors' answer. Dr. Connors is a smart man, and a smart man with a strong desire. For him, regrowing his lost right arm is definitely the most important thing in life, and there is no other. It is not difficult to lose a short period of freedom in order to gain the hope of truly restoring his right arm. As Rog expected, after a few minutes of silence, Dr. Connors gave the answer he wanted to hear. I can help you restore Richard's equation, but all this will have to wait until you rescue me from Oscorp. And, I want to know how you're going to rescue me. Oscorp can't be compared with S.H.I.E.L.D., but it's not the kind of existence that can be pinched. Dr. Connors looked up at Rog and asked the question he was most concerned about at the moment. It's simple, I'll leave a mark on you that only I can know. After handing you over to Oscorp, I'll confirm your location through this mark and take you away. It's not the first time Rog has done something like handing over the target to the client and taking the target away from the client after completing the commission. The last time he enjoyed this treatment was S.H.I.E.L.D., which was far stronger than Oscorp. As for whether Oscorp would have an opinion on this, Rog didn't care at all, because Oscorp couldn't know that he did it. Mark? Are you sure this method will work? Dr. Connors doesn't doubt Rog's ability. People who can kill Leviathan Behemoth won't deceive him on this issue. And this kind of deception is meaningless and will only affect the next cooperation between the two. But as a scientist, he has a rational doubt about what Rog said about the mark that only he can see. Don't worry, in this regard, I never fail. In the next 10 minutes, Rog and Dr. Connors continued to communicate some details. Then, Rog gave Dr. Connors a hand knife and knocked him out completely. After leaving the sewer with the comatose Dr. Connors, Roger made a phone call to the Oscorp Group's head of security. When he received a call from Rog, the head of security named Alan froze for a moment and then rushed over with a security team. It's only been 4 or 5 hours since the commission. Rog's super efficiency made Alan doubt the professionalism of the previous private military companies. They are all private military companies. How can there be such a big gap? Can't he have a little professional quality? Can this industry be good? More than half an hour later, Alan came with Oscorp's security team to the place and saw Dr. Connors, who was unconscious on the ground. He's here, do you need to confirm his identity? Rog's voice. No, he's the person we are. With just a simple glance, Alan confirmed the identity of Dr. Connors. As Oscorp's head of security, Alan was no stranger to Dr. Connors. And when Dr. Connors had just escaped from Oscorp, he was the first to take people to hunt him down. It's just that he failed to hunt him down, so he entrusted the matter of private military companies outside. At Alan's signal, 5 or 6 security personnel quickly rushed up and added a bunch of restraints that Rog had never seen before to the unconscious Dr. Connors. After tying Dr. Connors up like a felon, the security personnel carried Dr. Connors to a special metal cage. "Thank you for your help. We may have more opportunities to cooperate in the future." After that, Alan extended his right hand to Rog to express his gratitude. Happy cooperation. When Dr. Connors was imprisoned in a special metal cage, the status of the commission in the system was updated for the first time. Commission content: capture the uncontrollable lizard test body in New York sewer. Commission status: completed. Commission reward: 30 ninja coins sent. Ninja coins not consumed: 270. 30 ninja coins were easily obtained, and it was another day full of harvest. When Oscorp's security team disappeared from sight, Rog took out his mobile phone again and called the Punisher. Dr. Connors has been handed over to Oscorp according to the plan, so the things left by Dr. Connors naturally need to be dealt with. This is also the details that Rog had communicated with Dr. Connors before. The Punisher will take away the simple laboratory that Dr. Connors left in the sewer. Rog also needs to get the mutant spider cultivated by Richard and Peter Parker's blood samples before rescuing Dr. Connors. According to Dr. Connors, there is a laboratory dedicated to cultivating Richard's mutant spider next to the interspecies laboratory of Oscorp building. In that laboratory, there are thousands of mutant spiders. As long as you can enter the laboratory, you can easily get Richard's mutant spider. Invading a large company's secret laboratory may be a little difficult for ordinary people. But for Rog, it's as simple as going back to his own home to get things. He doesn't even have to do it himself, he just has to arrange a shadow clone. After instructing the Punisher, Rog first used the Flying Thunder God to return home to take a bath. After completely erasing the sewer smell from his body, he returned to his office with the Flying Thunder God. How is the investigation of Peter Parker's information going now? After returning to the office, Rog directly picked up the internal phone on the table and asked Sky about the progress of the investigation. "The investigation has been done and it has been sent to your mailbox." After answering Rog, Sky hung up the phone directly. Although the time of the call was very short, Rog heard the obvious tapping of the keyboard from the other end of the phone. She's not invading another government department, is she? Normally, Sky's daily hobby would not be too much of a problem. But the key to the problem is that she is always playing with some important confidential departments, such as S.H.I.E.L.D. Sky's hacking skills are of course top-notch, but that doesn't mean she can quietly invade S.H.I.E.L.D. If she had such an ability, she wouldn't have to cooperate with Rog. Not long after moving to the new company, Rog received a warm reminder from Mother Fokker, asking him to control Sky's curiosity a little. Chapter 142. Putting Sky's question behind him for the time being, Rog opened his mailbox and began to browse the information collected by Sky. Peter Parker, Father Richard Parker, 11 years old, lives in Queens, lives with his uncle and aunt after his parents died, and is currently studying at Ellie Pond Park Elementary School in Queens. Uncle Ben Parker, an ordinary skilled worker, Aunt May Parker, a nurse at a public hospital. In addition to this basic information, Sky also hacked into the elementary school where Peter was studying and found all of Peter's grades from the student database. All A's in all subjects. Although he is still young, little Peter has begun to perform as a genius, judging from his exam results and various evaluations given by the teacher. But at the end of the information, Sky specifically noted a piece of information. Introverted, not good at socializing, and has few friends. After reading Peter's information, Rog leaned back in his chair and began to think about a more serious problem. If he wanted to, he could make Peter become Spider-Man in advance. But the question is whether Peter, who is only 11 years old at present, can maintain his proper mind after gaining this extraordinary power. Not to mention that Peter is only a primary school student at present. Even those adults in their 30s and 40s may not be able to maintain their original mind after suddenly gaining great power. In case Peter's mind is affected by this power, then what will appear in the future will no longer be the superhero Spider-Man, but the supervillain Spider-Man. After thinking about it for a while, Rog finally gave up on the idea. Collecting Peter's blood is enough. As for his future, it's better not to interfere. After making the decision, Rog decisively displayed Shadow Clone. Bang! After the 2 clouds of smoke dissipated, 2 shadow clones appeared in front of him. Collecting Peter's blood and invading Oscorp were very simple, so Rog directly handed it over to the shadow clone. Before the 2 shadow clones set off, he also specifically told them to do it secretly as much as possible. When the shadow clone Flying Thunder God left the office, Rog picked up the phone on the desk again and dialed Sky's internal number. "What's the matter? Is there a problem with the information?" When the phone was connected, Sky's voice immediately came over, and there was a very obvious tapping sound on the keyboard. "Help me check another person's information." Her name was Gwen Stacy. Her father was a police captain in New York. His name was George Stacy. She should be a high school student now, but you'll have to find out which high school she's in. Rog told Sky everything he remembered. Female high school student? Hearing the word high school student, Sky's interest was piqued, and the sound of tapping on the keyboard disappeared. "If I'm not mistaken, he's a high school student. If you don't have any, you can also look into secondary schools or universities." After Rog finished speaking, there was a sudden silence on the other side of the phone. After a dozen seconds, there was a malicious laughter. "Mr. Rog, as the president of a private military company, don't you think it's very wretched for a hacker to investigate the information of a female high school student in the middle of the night? And don't forget, you're the masked man in the Avengers. Your behavior will make your female fans sad." Rog didn't speak, because he was sure that no matter how he answered, he would be ridiculed by Sky. "But at your current age, it's normal to be interested in the young opposite sex. After all, which man can refuse a youthful body full of vitality?" Sky, like discovering a new continent, opened the ridicule mode to his heart's content. "Your imagination is too rich. Start the investigation now. I hope to see Gwen's information as soon as possible." After that, Rog hung up the phone directly. Speaking of which, Sky's age should be about the same as Gwen's. It's just that one lives according to the normal trajectory of life, while the other deals with the dark side of the world all day long. If Sky's parents were normal, she should now be thinking about which university to apply to. Sigh, this is the damned fate. After instructing Sky, Rog also returned home with the Flying Thunder God. Before going to sleep, he deliberately used chakra perception to perceive Dr. Connor's Flying Thor technique and Dr. Connor's current strength of life energy. As he expected, Oscorp did not detain Dr. Connors in the Oscorp building, but took Dr. Connors to a secret research institute in the suburbs. And judging from Dr. Connor's current strength of life energy, he has not suffered any inhuman abuse, and his vital signs are stable and healthy. After confirming Dr. Connor's current situation, Rog went straight back to his room and went to sleep. According to their plan, he would not rescue Dr. Connors in the first place. The rescue time will be in a few days, and he needs to prepare all the equipment Dr. Connors needs in advance before the rescue. After a comfortable sleep and a hearty breakfast, Rog left home with the Flying Thunder God. Instead of returning to the company directly, he teleported directly to the warehouse prepared by the Punisher. This warehouse was originally a temporary base prepared by the Punisher for himself and Abomination, but after knowing that Rog wanted him to prepare a safe and secretive laboratory, he had to share this warehouse. After a busy night, he moved all the equipment and data left in the sewer by Dr. Connors to the warehouse. And now, in addition to him, who has been busy all night, there are also 2 of Rog's shadow doppelgangers in the warehouse. Peter's blood sample, Richard's mutant spider. The 2 most important raw materials for restoring Richard's super spider equation are ready. Dr. Connors can start restoring Richard's super spider equation by just preparing the various professional equipment needed by the Research Institute. These professional equipment are not difficult to find, but some more professional channels are needed. And Rog happens to know people who have such channels. After calling Tawny again and paying $50 million, he got what he wanted smoothly. Tawny didn't know what he wanted to do, but from the professional equipment he bought, Tawny could roughly guess his plan. Biotechnology research, high-end technology in the field of genetics. But Tawny didn't say anything about it. After all, everyone has their own little hobbies, and in his opinion, Rog is not the kind of madman who will destroy the world. Chapter 143. It had to be said that Tawny's private channels were useful, and the efficiency was even amazing. 12 hours after the payment, Rog received a call from a biological research and development equipment company to pick up the goods. Of course, there was no need to do such heavy work himself, and the shadow clone was the best helper. There was nothing wrong with being lazy. It was because humans were lazy enough that there was a technologically advanced world. So Rog enjoyed this feeling of laziness with a clear conscience. After arranging the shadow clone to collect the goods, he opened his mailbox and began to browse the information collected by Sky. Gwen Stacy, 17 years old this year, studying at Zhongqing High School of Science and Technology, had both parents and 2 younger brothers. Like Peter Parker, Gwen was also a top student, with the highest A's in all subjects. But there was one thing that made her different from Peter. She was a very popular and beautiful scholar. Blonde hair, blue eyes, outstanding appearance, and a good figure. Although she would not graduate until next year, Sky found that she had been scheduled to be the next graduate representative when she searched the school database and the principal's computer. Compared with her, Peter Parker was like an unknown passerby. She was good-looking, had good grades, and had a good family background. She was a proper school goddess. After reading Gwen's information, Rog fell into deep thought. Just as Sky mocked him yesterday, with his current identity, it was difficult for him to have a normal intersection with an ordinary female high school student. If he suddenly went to her door, he would most likely be regarded as the kind of lecher with bad intentions. Should he go against his conscience and play the role of a sea king who was confused by beauty? Then he would play hard to get, deceive the world, and loot a burning house. Finally, he would guide Gwen to become Spider-Gwen, and let Spider-Gwen, who would only appear in a parallel universe, appear in this world. This method seemed quite feasible, but it would seem a bit perverted. But if he didn't have an intersection with Gwen, he could only secretly let the improved mutant spider bite her. But in this way, he would seem even more perverted. Perverted, or even more perverted, this was the question. After thinking about it seriously for more than 10 minutes, he decided to temporarily give up on this problem. Even if he wants Spider-Gwen to appear in the world, he has to wait for Dr. Connors to restore Richard's super spider equation. It was too early to think about how to get in touch with Gavin. A few days later, Rog rescued Dr. Connors from Oscorp's Secret Research Institute as agreed. Of course, the one who went to save them was not himself, but a shadow clone that had transformed into Loki. As the instigator of the Battle of New York, Loki wouldn't mind taking the blame for him. "Doctor, it seems like you've been doing well these past few days." With a ruddy complexion and full of spirit, Dr. Connors did not look as down and out as when he was in the sewer. Dr. Connors' current image perfectly conforms to his status as a doctor. "They wanted me to continue perfecting the equation, so they were quite polite to me. Other than letting those amateur third-rate fellows do research on my body." At the beginning, Dr. Connors' tone was calm, but towards the end, Rog felt a strong killing intent from him. "These are small problems. When you complete the real equation, you can consider giving them a small gift as a thank you gift." Although Rog has not experienced this kind of body research, he can understand Dr. Connors' dissatisfaction. As a well-deserved leader in the field of cross-species genetics, he also has a powerful strength beyond ordinary people. As a result, he was studied as a white mouse by people who were far inferior to him. This kind of thing would be unbearable for anyone. "I've got the equipment and instruments you asked me to prepare." Richard's mutant spider and blood samples had also been prepared. "If you have nothing else to do, I hope you can start as soon as possible." Rog pointed to the temporary laboratory behind him that was not exquisite but was professional enough. "No problem." As soon as he finished speaking, Dr. Connors went straight into the laboratory and began the reverse restoration of Richard's super spider equation. When Dr. Connors began to work seriously, Rog returned to his office with the Flying Thunder God. Professional things should be left to professionals. And with the Punisher, he doesn't have to worry about Dr. Connors having any ideas that he shouldn't have. Days passed, and unknowingly, more than half a month has passed. Although there is Peter's blood sample and Richard's mutant spider, it is still not easy to reverse restore Richard's equation. Dr. Connors is indeed a rare talent, but he is not a super genius like Tawny and Banner. The progress of restoring the equation is much slower than the two of them expected. According to Dr. Connors himself, there is still one of the most important key data that has not been derived, and it may take a week or two to complete the final restoration. Rog didn't care too much about this. As long as it can be restored, it doesn't matter if the time is slow. While Dr. Connors was restoring the equation, Rog was not idle and began to attack Gavin. No, it's getting to know her. In order to make the acquaintance between the two not seem so abrupt, he used a slightly roundabout method. First of all, he found a charity public welfare organization. Then, in his personal name, he donated a sum of $10 million to the charity organization and set up a charity fund to thank the New York police for their contributions. Finally, with the assistance of the public welfare organization, a charity party to thank the New York police for fighting against the Chidori was born. When drawing up the invitation list, he included several police stations on the list of key thanks, including the police station where Gavin's father, Sheriff George, was located. Although the process was a little complicated, he finally achieved his goal and successfully got to know Sergeant George and his family. When Sheriff George shook his hand to express his gratitude, a trace of guilt emerged in his heart. "If you know that I'm thinking about your baby girl, you certainly won't have any idea of thanking me. Maybe you'll have the idea of shooting me directly in the head." With such a foreshadowing, the subsequent things were much simpler. Although Rog is now a typical single dog, he was an out-and-out VIP player before crossing over. The former little white dragon in the waves is now going to start galloping again. Chapter 144. What is the saying? If she is not deeply involved in the world, take her to see the prosperity of the world. If her heart has been vicissitudes, take her to ride the merry-go-round. This used to be Rog's tactical plan to gallop on the battlefield. But he later found out that this was not his real trump card. What really made him a little white dragon in the waves was not these seemingly reasonable methods, but a simple and crude fact that couldn't be any more simple and crude. Handsome. Very handsome. Very handsome. This is the trump card that made him famous. However, just as he was about to gallop, he soon encountered the Waterloo of his life. For a top student who likes knowledge more, his previous undefeated handsomeness has suffered an unprecedented challenge. Although he deliberately created several romantic encounters that little girls of Gwen's age would like, the cruel reality slapped him a few times. The 8-pack abdominal muscles with obvious lines, the golden ratio figure that is thin with clothes and fleshy without clothes, plus the handsome face that does not lose to the popular little fresh meat. Not only has his appearance not deteriorated, but it is better than before. Coupled with the fact that he now has a lot of wealth, in terms of external conditions, his charm should be several levels higher than before. It shouldn't be, even if cultural concepts are not the same, it shouldn't be such a bleak start. Even the well-informed widow of New York has been thinking about him, which shows that his charm has always been on the line. What exactly went wrong? It can't be because a top student only likes a top student, right? After thinking about it for a few minutes, Rog felt that this possibility seemed quite high. Of all the personas, a top student is the most difficult to disguise, especially in front of a real top student. Forget it, don't think about it. I'm not going to pick her up, I just want her to become the superhero Spider-Gwen. Time passed day by day, Dr. Connors continued the work of reverse restoring the equation, and Rog continued his daily life. Accepting commissions, completing commissions, asking Gwen to eat, accepting commissions, completing commissions, asking Gwen to watch movies. To be honest, Rog is quite satisfied with the current pace of life. The difficulty of the commissions is not high, and the rewards given by the system are also very reasonable. The amount of chakra has also been increasing, and the development of wood-release ninjutsu and Sharingan genjutsu is also progressing well. Except for the last key data of the equation that Dr. Connors couldn't figure out, everything else was pretty good. Last time, Dr. Connors said that it would only take a week or two to derive the final key data. However, 3 months had passed, and he was still trying to deduce the key data. In order to support Dr. Connor's research, his savings dropped at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the number of bank deposits almost fell below 10 digits. Fortunately, the hard-working punishers and abominations made up for some of his losses to a large extent. Just when he thought that these peaceful days would continue, he suddenly received a call from Coulson. "Rog, we have a problem right now. If it's convenient for you, please come over immediately. The address is in Brooklyn." After telling Rog an address, Coulson immediately hung up the phone, or was forced to hang up the phone. "What's this? Do you really think I'm a member of the Avengers?" Although he said that, he still teleported to the nearest block to the location Coulson said, and then walked towards the address Coulson said. However, when he just arrived at the block Coulson said, he suddenly felt a familiar and strange breath. The moment he sensed this aura, his face became abnormally cold. S.H.I.E.L.D. really dares to do anything. After using the body flicker technique several times in a row, he came to the office building that Coulson said, and then saw a scene like purgatory on Earth. This office building is not big, only 6 floors, and the building is older than Rog. From the outside, it looked like an unremarkable old office building. But as soon as he walked into the lobby on the first floor of the office building, he could see corpses one after another, and they died in the way he was familiar with. Wood release cutting technique. The cause of death of these corpses was the same as his cutting technique. Wooden thorns pierced out of the corpses, and blood stained the floor, and their deaths were extremely tragic. After taking a few deep breaths and temporarily suppressing the anger in his heart, Rog came to a corpse, and then cut off one of the wooden thorns with kunai. Although from the outside, these wooden thorns were very similar to the wooden thorns he used to perform the cutting technique. But in fact, the two were completely different. The wooden thorns in his hand were completely ordinary wood, without any chakra on them, and they did not have the amazing vitality of his wood release. In terms of hardness, these wooden thorns were far inferior to the wood he summoned with wood release. The wood he summoned with wood release, even without the supply of chakra, couldn't be easily cut by ordinary metal knives. The huge difference between these wooden thorns and his wood release wood thorns was like the difference between the physique of the American Team Rogers and the Hulk. But even so, the existence of these wooden thorns was enough to prove some things. When he threw away the blood-stained wooden thorn in his hand, he saw Coulson, or rather, Coulson, who almost lost his right hand. Coulson was still in a suit, but at this time, there was a huge wound of more than 20 centimeters on his right hand. Although it had been through some simple bandaging and treatment, blood still gushed out of the bandage. Beside Coulson, there were 2 other figures that he was familiar with. Cuirassier Melinda May, and Grant Ward. "You'd better give me a satisfactory answer, otherwise, you know the consequences." Rog's tone was as cold as his face at this time. "I only learned about these things today. There was an accident in the experiment, and the experimental body was out of control. S.H.I.E.L.D. will give you a satisfactory answer, but before that, I hope you can help deal with the experimental body that is out of control for the sake of those innocent people." Coulson said weakly. A lot of blood loss made his face extremely pale, and the severe pain from the wound also made obvious sweat appear on his face. "What qualifications do you have to make conditions with me now? Do you really think I won't dare to attack S.H.I.E.L.D.? As soon as his voice fell, Rog came to Coulson in an instant, grabbed his neck with his right hand, and lifted him up. Chapter 145. May and Ward didn't expect that Rog would actually do it. At the moment when Rog lifted Coulson, they stepped forward at the same time, ready to attack Rog to rescue Coulson at any time. However, before they could do anything, they were bounced out by Rog's sudden burst of chakra coat. In addition to giving Rog super defensive abilities, chakra coat can also be used to attack enemies. As long as one's own chakra control level reaches a certain level, it is not difficult to control the released chakra to attack close enemies. For example, Crown Prince Ming and the like can even condense chakra into an arm to help make meatballs directly. "It's Natasha." Coulson grabbed Rog's right arm with his intact left hand and struggled to speak. Before Coulson finished speaking, Rog increased the strength of his right hand, turning his face into the color of a pig's liver. "If you lie one more time, I'll break your neck right now." Rog can't read minds, but he can be 100% sure that Coulson is lying. Natasha did have some close contact with him, but it is absolutely impossible for Natasha to give his cells or other genetic samples to S.H.I.E.L.D. Natasha doesn't have such courage, and Natasha knows very well what can be done and what can't be done. In S.H.I.E.L.D., Natasha is definitely the one who knows Rog's bottom line best. She doesn't have the courage to do something that will directly cause Rog to go berserk, and she won't do it. And if it was provided by Natasha, then S.H.I.E.L.D. would have gotten his cells a few years ago, and they wouldn't have waited until today to start the research. It's the body of the intruder on the helicarrier, and the body of the Leviathan. Coulson has dealt with Rog many times, so he knows that Rog is really angry. If he doesn't tell the truth, Rog will definitely not hesitate to break his neck. S.H.I.E.L.D. does have a confidentiality agreement, but it also depends on what the confidentiality is. When Coulson finished speaking, Rog released his right hand. Coulson once again enjoyed the beauty of breathing freely. Then in the next second, he fell directly to the floor under the influence of gravity. I will deal with the thing outside. When I come back, you and Nick Fury better give me a satisfactory answer. After that, Rog left the office building without looking back. S.H.I.E.L.D. is the typical representative of courting death. After the New York battle, Rog thought that S.H.I.E.L.D. would be a little more restrained. As a result, in just a few months, these guys made a new move. Last time, it was because of the unlimited energy in the Tesseract. This time, it was because of his wood release. In S.H.I.E.L.D.'s view, Rog's wood release is easier to control than the magic cube. After all, Rog is a living example. Moreover, the attack and defense abilities displayed by wood release are more in line with S.H.I.E.L.D.'s needs. The infinite energy represented by the magic cube can improve the technological level of the entire world, and its development prospects are broader. But the research of the magic cube is obviously much more difficult than the research of wood release. What's more, they have now completely lost the magic cube. But Rog's wood release is different. It is a power that can be used perfectly on humans. If they could master the secrets of wood release, S.H.I.E.L.D. would be able to create their own team of extraordinaires. The existence of the Avengers let the whole world see how powerful a team of transcendence is. After the New York battle, S.H.I.E.L.D. wasn't the only company that was interested in transcendence again. After leaving the office building, Rog went directly to the roof of a nearby building and began to use chakra perception. He didn't know what kind of life energy signs S.H.I.E.L.D.'s experimental subject had. He could only determine where the experimental subject had gone by perceiving all the humans nearby. With his current location as the center, it spread out little by little. After spending some time, Rog finally found S.H.I.E.L.D's so-called out-of-control experimental subject. Unlike what he imagined, the experimental subject didn't leave here immediately, but went directly to a chain restaurant a few blocks away. When Rog came to the restaurant and pushed open the door, he immediately smelled a strong smell of blood. When he perceived the experimental subject before, he had already noticed that something was wrong. In his perception, there were no signs of life in the entire restaurant except for the experimental subject. Of course, a chain restaurant can't have no customers, and even if there were no customers, there would be at least a minimum of service staff. As he expected, when he pushed open the restaurant door and entered, he saw a scene similar to the lobby on the first floor of the office building. More than a dozen corpses were scattered around the restaurant, and the wooden thorns on the corpses clearly showed the cause of their death. Next to a table near the restaurant bar, there was a middle-aged man in white clothes with wooden thorns all over his body. The middle-aged man looked up at Rog and then put his eyes on the food in front of him. Like a beggar who had been hungry for days, he crazily stuffed the hamburger in his hand into his mouth. In just a few seconds, the man finished the hamburger in his hand and then picked up a steak that had not been cut at all. The man ate frantically, and the food that filled the whole table disappeared at a terrifying speed. Rog didn't disturb the man's eating. He just silently came to the opposite side of the man and sat down directly. A few minutes later, when the man finished eating all the food on the table, he raised his head again and looked at Rog in front of him with a strange look. Rog and the man didn't speak, just looked at each other silently. "Are you the masked man? I've seen the video of your battle with those aliens, and it was wonderful. But I'm stronger than you. As soon as his voice fell, the man's right hand suddenly attacked Rog. From Rog's point of view, he could clearly see a wooden thorn gushing out of the man's palm, stabbing towards him like a sharp blade. However, just as the sharp wooden thorn was about to pierce his neck, an arm made entirely of wood emerged from his left shoulder. In just a moment, the wooden arm grabbed the man's right hand, and the two palms clenched together like fists. When his right hand was grabbed by the wooden arm, the man didn't hesitate and immediately stretched out his left hand. As soon as he raised his left hand, a piece of wood as thick as an arm also gushed out of Rog's right shoulder. When the wood that gushed out of Rog's right shoulder reached the man, the wood suddenly split into two, turning into two arms. One of the wooden arms pressed the man's left hand, and the other directly pinched his neck. "No, you're not strong at all,"